I'd like to welcome all of you to our November 12th regular meeting of the City Council. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government, and we ask that when you come to the microphone, either here on the dais or at the speaker, please speak clearly and loudly and close to the microphone so that we can all hear well. With that, I call this meeting to order, and could we all please stand for our invocation? I'd like to welcome Bishop Sam Haught, who is with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Sam, it's good to have you here. Please remain standing for the pledge, which will follow immediately after the invocation.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we bow our heads before you this evening in gratitude for this wonderful community that we have to live in, for our friends and our families. We're grateful that we've been spared this season from any major natural disasters. And we pray at this time to bless us with thy Spirit during this meeting with understanding and direction and good guidance in the decisions that are made and the directions we take. We ask you to bless our community, the individuals and families and leaders. They'll be protected from the virus, and those that are afflicted with it at this time will get better soon and be able to endure through this challenging time that we're all facing. We're so grateful for our country, for our freedoms, the opportunities that this land provides for us. We ask to please watch over and protect our leaders and bless them with good understanding of the issues that we're facing, and help us to make wise and proper decisions in how to govern ourselves. We love thee, and we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sam. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Here.
Councilmember Cooper?
Here.
Councilmember Askew?
Here.
Councilmember Trace?
Here.
At this time, we'll have a presentation regarding our water and wastewater from Marjorie Craig, our Environmental Utilities Director.
Good evening. I'm Marjorie Craig, Environmental Utilities Director, and this will be the first time that I've used this thing here. So as I've done the last many council meetings, I'll give you an update on where we are with the water, cleaning, the resin, and also the sewer overflows. So with that, we have listed there all the pipes that we've cleaned to date, how many miles, through the 3 methods that we've been using to clean the pipes: unidirectional flushing, ice pigging, and line swabbing. Are we done yet? That's the major question. No, but most of the resin has been removed, and will continue until the pipes are clean. We've done about 11, almost 12 miles. You can see an engineer did that, 11.9. So almost 12 miles of water mains in October and November so far. And we plan to do an additional almost 5 miles through November. We're targeting Lago Buendia and Legacy Park. And as I've mentioned before, please, if you hear of any customers that have any issues, please have them contact us directly. We want to know. That's how we help target where we want to do future cleaning, and it's very important. So here's just a map that shows the areas that we're fixing to conduct some unidirectional flushing. This is, of course, Lake Shore Boulevard to the lake and Parton Settlement. So this shows the number of customer calls that we've had per week. You can see that from the high time, we've gone down, but and this is due to just the color. And we did a little bit of flushing, so we're attributing the extra 2 calls to that. But we're going for 0, but we're going to keep going until we get everything clean. So with that, I'll move to the sanitary sewer high flows during intense rain events. As you know, we're continuing to look for the sanitary sewer high flow, about the 1 million gallon per day new inflow. We think it's a major inflow as opposed to a combination or a cumulative amount of inflow from manholes. But we could be wrong, but we believe there's something much larger. We haven't stopped, even though it's not raining. Well, I could say that, but it is raining. It has been raining, and we have not seen the overflows again. So we're continuing on. There's a list there of the laterals that we're lining, and USSI, this is their 3rd week of manhole inspections. They're coating the inside of manholes that have inflow, and if they're too bad to do that, then they go on the list for rehab. And of course, we'll have data from the TV logs. So the sewer lateral lining, you've probably been seeing their TV trucks, hopefully, and they're cleaning, lining it, and inspecting it. So they do the TV before they do the lining. They TV and line and clean it. And then they line it, and then they TV it again to have a record of what's been done. And I mentioned that they're in their 3rd week. We've got about 650 manholes that they'll be inspecting. So you can see as of the 6th, they've done about 211. And the difference between the 211 and the 180, of course, is the list of manholes that will need to be rehabbed. So that's a little over 30 right now. This is the lift station run time versus the rain. So again, I can't thank Public Works enough for getting the stormwater ponds lowered. I believe that that's helped. So even though we've had the rain is in the red, our sewer lift station is staying fairly constant. So as opposed to the earlier times when there were major peaks. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
First of all, we'd like to certainly thank you for your leadership and the Public Works Department for all of their consistency and hard work that they're doing. Would anyone in the council like to ask a question? Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I would like to echo what the mayor just said. Thank you guys for all your hard work. I know this is trying to, reverse engineer and figure out what's going on. I know it's difficult. I did have one comment, kind of pretty much unrelated, but we all just recently, 3 of us were just recently standing next to the lift station, that's next to the Civic Center here, and it smells so bad. It smells so bad. Is there anything we can look at to try to mitigate the smell?
Absolutely. Some of my colleagues would say that's the smell of money, but I don't think that anyone else would agree with that is around that lift station. We have actually already been out there. We got a complaint. We went right out there, and they modified the odor control. But again, if you experience it, if you smell it again, I actually live pretty close to it. I'll go by and check it.
Well, Councilman Raskin and I just walked
Okay.
past it on our way over to the Civic Center tonight, and it about knocks you down. It smells so bad.
I'll make sure we get right on that.
So
Thank you for
if
letting me
there's
know.
Something we could do for that. That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will do.
Councilmember Cooper.
Do we have any way to put a sealer around that portion where they lift and can get down into there? That same particular?
Oh, at the lift station?
Yes, I think it is.
What we'll do is we'll check out, is there anything more beyond just tweaking the odor control system and see if
Yes,
there's
as far as
a
sealing.
seal
Yes.
or if the inflow dishes will be placed there as well.
Okay, if you could go back to your pictures you had for the,
Which one?
go back until we get to the grid where you show, right there. Now,
Need to talk into the mic.
you're doing it in different spots here, different locations. Why are we not going here and there and over there? Why are we not doing continually in the grid and start from the beginning and go from east to west or west to east? I don't care. But why are we just doing, I call it hodgepodge, we're doing it from portions here.
That's a great question. And I'm really glad you asked that because, as you might remember from before, we evaluated data. So what the data showed is that so everything is collected and sent down to Lift Station 5, where it's sent to the wastewater plant, the newer wastewater plant.
Yes.
The original design of these pipes was to collect everything there where the old wastewater plant was. So we looked for the high flow areas, and so those basins or sub-basins, collection basins, are the ones that we're targeting initially to try to find that 1 million gallons per day. So that's where, we found upstream of Lift Station 5, those were the basins that showed the higher flow. So that's what we're focusing on first. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go in the rest of the grid area. That's just where we're starting now.
Yeah, but I thought we had some problems on Tennessee Avenue, some of those manholes that were flooding and stuff like that.
And we've done some work there. So, again, those are all, we've all looked at them.
Okay, well, the grid has probably been anywhere from 25 to 40 years. It hadn't even been touched. So at at what point will you start going from every street and go from Lakeshore up to 13th Street and checking each one of those?
So we have manually checked each one of them, everything in the grid. We have also TV'd Tennessee and some of the Georgia, Tennessee, some of the other streets there. It's a slow process. So we do know where some of the areas that we need to repair. We know there are 3 lift stations that we need to do a major rehab on without even having USI out there. So it's just a systematic, you have to look at you have to prioritize because you can't be everywhere all at once. And so you look at the highest risk of failure. So, and if you have more information that you want to share, if you think we've missed something, let Bill know. We'll get right on it but we've had some of the best hydraulic engineers, sanitary sewer engineers on this area. So
Okay.
it's,
Well, the only problem is that, like I said, it's the older age of these pipes and drainage and stuff like that. It's been 40 to 50, 60 years now, and it hasn't been cleaned out a lot of times in the grid. So are we starting to get all these sand infiltration? Are we pushing that through and getting it out of there?
so this is only the USSI work. So some of the other parts of the grid are being addressed by the lateral lining, where they're TVing and cleaning out the system, and then by our own crews as well. So it's really a multi-pronged approach in the grid. So age of pipe is really only one criteria when you're considering risk of failure. And I've worked with systems. This is actually kind of a baby system compared to some of the systems that I've worked in. So I worked for Tampa for 18 years. Very, very old system. And so you have to prioritize. But this is a priority. The area is a priority, and the priority areas are the high flow areas that we can see in the lift station run times. So if we see a high flow in the lift station, we can see, hey, we need to back through, and that could be where we're getting that large flow.
Okay. Will we also be doing the liners in some of these pipes or in the grid, or most of them, I would assume, because, like I said, the age is needing the repair inside where they've got infiltration that's going to keep coming. No matter if you keep pressing and pushing the sand out, it's going to keep coming back until you get the liners done. So how quickly are we going to do Where are we at on the liners, getting that done?
You're absolutely right. If you don't line them and they are, and they have cracks, the sand will come in. I have a map, I don't have it with me, that shows where the lined pipes already in the grid are. And so I can bring that for the next update. How's that?
Okay.
So we have a lining contractor that we have a list for them to work on next, but we're actually holding that until USSI finishes their study, because we may have to reprioritize that list of pipes that needs to be lined based on condition. So this is basically, they're going to give us a condition assessment, which will allow us to prioritize the repairs and make them and have the biggest bang for the buck.
Okay, and where are we at on the schedule, though? I mean, as far as
On what?
the schedule, where are we on our schedule as far as getting that done and starting to put the liners and where?
So many of there are pipes that have already been lined. USSI is 3 weeks in. They have another, they've about done probably a third of the manholes. And that's just the first pass. After they line and inspect, then we'll do smoke testing. And then we'll come up with a prioritized list. And then we'll do more TV work. And then we'll do the lining. So by the early part of the next calendar year, we'll be starting to line more pipe, the worst pipe.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gregg. The next item on our agenda is our Citizens Forum. Any person who desires to comment on an item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the City Council. Each person is requested to complete a sign-in form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. Mr. John Rollis, would you like to speak?
First of all, I want to, my name is John Wallace. I was a former councilman. I live at 430 Florida Avenue. And I want to congratulate you who were reelected. So looks like we got the same crew as we had before. Let's hope you're smarter than you were before, because we look forward to it. How many of you have ever gone down to the lakefront and looked at the bike path? Well, and how many bikes do you see? You see more walkers than bikers, I believe. So this situation on Florida Avenue of destroying our mediums, upsetting something of 50 years or more that have been in place, is out of place on our street. What we would like to see, no bike paths. We would like to see that the city spend some money on those mediums. In the past several years, 20 years ago, I was on city council, and we put the so-called shrub and trees in place. Now, nobody's done anything since then. What I'd like to see done, as you have done with other mediums, hedges around the curbs, and dress them up, because we get a lot of action down to the lakefront on our street. Don't like it, but nothing you can do about it. And I like to see speed bumps. We got more younger people living in the area. Need to slow the traffic down. Most of the time, it's pretty good, but then you got the cowboys going down that street. We need to slow them up. Somebody's going to get hurt. And that's about all I got to say. Take a look at it. We certainly, one complaint is about notification. Some of the ends of the mediums have a sign, yard sign, what it looks like. You can hardly read it unless you stop, get out and read it, asking about different things about Florida Avenue. I'd like to see that City Council set up a meeting with residents and find out directly how we feel about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rollis.
I was wondering if, Bill, can you answer any of that?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rollis. And Council, we are addressing that issue. We talked to some of the residents there and realized that we missed the mark on notification, so we're going to have more community involvement meetings and get their input. It's never been our intent to destroy the median or the nice plants and stuff down that avenue, but the whole purpose of this is to link our downtown with our lakefront for economic development. But we're going to have more community meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak during the Citizens Forum? If not, that brings us to our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Is,
Mr. Mayor, you had some individuals.
sir, would you like to speak? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, council. My name is Tom Lord. I live at 3255 Olivera Way. I just wanted to congratulate each council member that won re-election this past election. And I'd like to speak to the selection of deputy mayor. I wanted to point out that in the
Sir.
last four...
Mr. Mayor, that is an agenda item,
That's
so
an
you have to
agenda?
wait till that item.
You'll have to
comes
wait
up.
till that item comes up to speak to that item,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the council during the Citizens Forum? If not, we come to our consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. First of all, is there any items that the council is wanting to address?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Cooper?
Thank you. I'd like to talk to about
Speak into the mic, sir.
about A, also D. Mr. Sturgeon, could you elaborate about A?
Actually, yes, Mr. Cooper, I can have Chief Zilke come up and talk about item A, which is the FUSIS system for our crime center. We'll have him come up and speak for that for just a second. Chief Zilke.
Wow, it didn't get us in trouble. I just asking a question.
These are the guys that are actually going to be running.
Please state your name and
So I'm Kirk Zilke, Deputy Chief of St. Cloud Police Department.
thank you. You speak a little bit closer to the mic if you
Get
would.
that a little bit higher then. Basically, this program is a. I'm going to let him explain the whole program to you. He can go more details about it with the questions and answering for you. But it's a very good project that we're working on. And
Kirk,
Mr.
Kirk, we
Zucker-
can't hear you. So.
You guys talk louder.
You're going to have to speak real close to the microphone.
Detective Justin Ziegler, St. Cloud Police Department.
Thank you.
The FUSIS project allows the police department to be able to view our CAD system, which is the automated dispatch, also city cameras, tips from citizens, and input from officers all on one screen. Currently, we have several systems that we use that are able to do this, but this allows us to do it on one screen. It saves us manpower. It also allows for greater situational awareness for our officers and a better response for our citizens. It also increases communication between the citizens and the police department, and also within the departments of the city.
Thank you. I was really more interested about the $75,000 for the first year, and then it's going to be, for the next 2 more years, it's going to drop down to 65.
Yes, sir. Because basically what we're doing is we're paying for a software program.
Sure.
Everything's stored in the cloud. The first year is $75,000, which includes additional cores that we're purchasing for the $10,000. Every year after that, it's $65,000. On the contract, we get $65,000 for the next 2 years with an additional 2 years on that. So we get 3 years at that, or 5 years total at that cost we can get to.
Okay. And I guess my question was, I asked Bill Sturgeon, was the chance that we could get some cameras in the downtown area? as
Yes, sir.
far
We've
as
actually done
New
an
York?
analysis of the downtown area and the whole downtown district area. We have these guys actually went out and did all that, and they've submitted a plan. And with our intention is to put some more cameras downtown. Also, this program integrates with other businesses, so we can get on the business cameras that already exist in down there, because we just had them give them a core, they attach it to their system, and that also allows us to see what's going on through their cameras in their system. So we
Okay.
can attach it to anywhere in the city if residents or businesses throughout the entire city.
Bill Sturgeon, is there any way that we could incorporate that and get it done in this next year with the $65,000 or $75,000 and add a little more to it if we have to get that done? We need, security down there, downtown, we need that for nighttime and stuff like that.
So on the next budget amendment in December, we'll be asking for additional money for those cameras, for the system. And like I said, they've done their analysis. We'll be attaching those downtown.
Okay, so you think we can get it done in the next year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was my question.
Also, I'll just let you know that we're saving the city a bunch of money by doing this in-house. These three gentlemen here are certified to install the cameras. They'll be the ones installing it, which is going to save the city a bunch of money, because when we subcontract it out, we've already priced some things out, and we're saving about 50% of the cost when we go outside versus our own guys doing it in-house.
I appreciate your help too. Thank you all for doing that.
So, any more questions?
That was all
Mayor.
question I had.
Councilmember Askew?
I just want to say, I had a little tour of the police department, huge supporter. I'm looking forward to you guys linking up to my business. If something happens there on the outside, inside, whatever, I think it's just fantastic. And I think down the road, it'll end up saving the citizens money if you can link up to outside cameras. So I'm a big supporter. I went down there. Fantastic job these guys did to it. Just amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is fantastic.
I would echo the same thing. It's pretty amazing, especially all the work you guys have done yourselves. It's just pretty amazing.
A lot of talent.
Yes, it is.
There's
You've
a
got
lot of
some
talent.
gifted
A lot of
people
hard
working for
work.
the city.
Appreciate
Yes.
it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, you want to address item D?
Item D. Yes, sir. 1 second. Is it E or D? Mr. Sturgeon, could you tell me about the...
Speak close to the mic, sir.
Mr. Sturgeon, could you tell me about the calls for the building department? I understand that it's been a lot of calls and it's going up $2,000. I don't have a problem with that. Is this going to keep every year that would be about the same? I would assume if we keep the same amount of calls going more?
Right. What this resolution does is authorize the city manager to authorize those slight increases. Like I said, it's going up an additional $2,000 this year, and as long as it's a budgeted item and under the authority of the city manager, which is $50,000, I'd be authorized to do that. We do not forecast it going up to $50,000, though. This is a system that our building department uses as a telephonic system that they use for permit requests and getting back to our contractors.
For calls and things
For
like
calls
that?
for permitting and inspections, yes.
Right. Okay. That was my main question, that it was going to stay in the same ballpark, the price.
Yes,
That it
sir.
wasn't going to keep going up every year.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to the consent agenda? If not, we'll have further discussion and a motion by council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Askew and a second from Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda are public hearings. Madam Clerk, could you please read items 1, 2, and 3?
First public hearing for introduction for ordinance number 2020-27, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida to annex into the City of St. Cloud approximately 3.53 acres identified as Big Sky Storage Development located east of Big Sky Boulevard, north of East Earl Bronson Memorial Highway, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Chapter 171.044 Florida statutes. First public hearing for an introduction for ordinance number 2020-28, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation of commercial to approximately 3.53 acres identified as Big Sky Storage Development, located east of Big Sky Boulevard, north of East Earl Bronson Memorial Highway, providing for the amending of the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan, filing the Planning Commission's recommendations, proof of publication, applicability and effect, severability, copies on file, and effective date. First public hearing and introduction for ordinance number 2020-29, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a zoning district of highway business compatible with commercial future land use designation change, adopted by ordinance number 2020-28, for approximately 3.53 acres identified as Big Sky Storage Development, located east of Big Sky Boulevard, north of East Earl Bronson Memorial Highway, providing for entering the designation of official zoning map, finding on the Planning Commission's recommendations, proof of publication, severability, and effective date.
Good evening, Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for reading those items into the record. The applicant this afternoon asked that these 3 items be continued to a date certain, which would be December 10th, 2020, which is the next City Council meeting. And these are for items Annexation 20005, Ordinance 2020-27, Ordinance 2020-28, and Ordinance 2020-29.
I would ask for the pleasure of the council. Starting first of all with ordinance number 2020-27 for continuance.
Motion to approve?
Motion to
Do we have to have discussion on that?
Okay.
It's a motion to continue.
It's a motion to continue the items, all 3 of these items.
Sir?
So you need, the request is a motion to continue all 3 of these items.
Okay.
Do one at a time.
Motion to
Can we just do all 3
continue
at the same time then?
I'm okay with you doing all 3 items at the same time.
Okay. Mr. Askew, you made a motion for the continuance of items 1, 2, and 3.
That's correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got 2 seconds. I'm going to give Mr. Trace the credit for this one. All right. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for the continuance of items 1, 2, and 3?
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Andre, Mr. Anderson, didn't we have an overlay we were working on, a 192 overlay, and talking about storage units being on the frontage of 192? Where are we at with that?
Yes, we do. We are working on that. It's now a published draft for review. And as such, any development that comes in subsequently is aware of the proposed change.
Okay.
And that includes provisions for prohibiting certain uses within the first 300 feet of US 192. If you recall, I think at your workshop some months ago, it was asked that staff expand the scope of the US 192 overlay district to include additional roadways throughout the city to develop some context-sensitive types of prohibitions and design standards for roads such as Nolte Road or Pine Tree, Old Canoe Creek, and so on. Those are some major corridors throughout the city. So the scope has expanded, but in order to move this forward, we will probably phase it and come forward with the 192 overlay district for adoption first, and then come back with phase 2 for the other roadways within the city.
Oh, thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 4?
First public hearing and introduction for ordinance number 2020-32. An ordinance of the City Council of City of St. Cloud, Florida, closing, vacating, abandoning portions of utility easement located at 3113 4th Street, north of 5th Street and east of Columbia Avenue, specifically describing the body of this ordinance, providing for severability, conflicts, and effective date.
Again, Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. This is the first public hearing of 2 for the abandonment of a right-of-way within the city of St. Cloud that's adjacent to 3113 4th Street. It is located just north of 5th Street. It actually dead ends into 4th Street and east of Columbia Avenue. The applicant is requesting to have the full width of the right-of-way abandoned. And typically, when we get requests for abandonment, 50% is awarded to one property owner and 50% to the other property owner. In this instance, the applicant is requesting that the entire width of the right-of-way be abandoned and in favor of them. The adjacent property owner is a family member, and we have requested that they provide some notarized affidavit indicating that the applicant has relinquished the desire to have that 50% of the right-of-way. We have no city public infrastructure in the easement at this time. It went to DRC for review on October 7th, and there were no letters of objection from any affected party that was notified of this abandonment, and there are no conditions at this time except for the affidavit assuring that the property owner is in agreement with abandoning the full 100% to the property owner on the east. This is an image of the site that we're talking about. It is between lots 1 and 6 and dead ends into lot 9 and lot 10. This roadway was originally going to continue north and south, but never did. And so we have this strip of land that essentially is adjacent to these two properties that serves no public purpose at this time. So that is why staff is recommending approval. It will be consistent with our infrastructure element for safe and adequate roadways, and staff is recommending approval of ordinance 2020-32 and ask that you do the same. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is the applicant wanting to speak to this item, or are you just here for questions? Please step to the microphone, please. Please step to the microphone.
David Woods, I'm the applicant. So I do have this form that was signed by my mother who lives there, but I didn't get it notarized, so I just need to get this notarized. That'd be okay? All right, so I already have it signed by her.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to speak?
No,
Further?
unless you have some questions for me.
We'll open up for discussion and/or motion by Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. My fellow council members, you know I don't like to vacate right away.
That's two of us.
I always feel like, working in government myself for 12 years, I don't know how many times I've had an issue come up and we look and we're like, oh, well, we have right away, but we vacated it or, whatever. So I'm not a fan to vacate right away. In this particular instance, I think the likelihood of us needing it was very slim. The issue that I have that I brought up in my agenda review is that I don't think this should be free. I think that there should be a cost associated with it because, and I don't know what that cost is, but it's basically giving 30 feet by 150 feet onto somebody's lot for free from city, it's a city asset. I feel like there should be some kind of process or something and a cost associated with this right-of-way for me to be comfortable with it. And I'm not the person, I'm not going to make the cost or whatever. I don't know what the fair way is, an appraised value or something, but me personally, I can't support giving away this city asset. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Would anyone else on the council like to speak to this item?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cooper.
Mr. Sturgeon, could you give us an update of how you would go ahead and come to a decision of how much money it's worth?
I think I'm going to ask Mr. Manzares to jump in on that one.
Okay.
Mr. Manzares.
Well, I'm not qualified to answer the question regarding valuation and how you come up with it, but I would like to just generally explain to you the process associated with vacating right-of-ways. And we suggest that you should look back at it historically. So at one point, and Andre or somebody, can you put up the picture of the, is there an old plat picture or diagram?
It's just
The next one. You have another?
We don't have a plat.
You don't have that?
No, just this.
Okay. It was in my packet, so I thought it was yours. Okay. Well, typically what happens is when these properties were platted years ago, the government at the time said, we're going to want a street through here. So we want to take a portion of your property, the owner who platted it, and we want you to dedicate that to the city to build a road that we may need in the future. So it's important to remember that the root of the dedication goes back to the private property owner that owned it in the chain of title before the applicant before you is asking this application. So in reality, you're not really giving the property back, giving it to somebody. You're returning it to the person, to the entity that initially dedicated it to the city years ago for purposes of a road. And it was done, it wasn't granted as it's not granted as a fee simple right on behalf of the city. It's granted for use as a road. So if the use is no longer there, then by operation of the code, the use having been determined to be no longer needed, the property then would revert back to the current owner of the property in the chain of title. So that's the general theory behind it. It follows the key decision being that the right-of-way is no longer needed for the public purposes of a road or sometimes for utilities. So that's the key determining factor.
Thank you. Would anyone else on the council have a question or want to speak to this item? Could I entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I think this gentleman held his hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's not free. I've already paid like $700 towards getting it done out of my pocket.
I think that was the application fee?
What's the question?
I mean, you said you paid $700?
About that much. I don't know the exact figure, but application fees and notarized letters to go out and all that stuff. So I didn't know, I had no idea that there might be another associated cost with it.
Councilmember Trace.
So, Deputy Mayor Matheny, I tend to agree with you in certain instances of if we needed some right-of-way expansion, you know, if 4th Street had to expand because it was going to connect to the east or west, but we've got a school on one side, platted property on the other, platted property on the south. So it really does serve no purpose in this instance. But in the future, and so we're not changing the goalpost, moving the goalposts on people midstream, we can look at an appraisal process for if someone wants to vacate an easement or a right-of-way, have an appraisal process, and they buy it back. Just like we would have to buy an easement or a right-of-way from someone, go through the same appraisal process for eminent domain or condemnation.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. Well, and I don't disagree with that. It's just you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Because it's just, you know, like in my profession, I'm telling you, umpteen times we've come across things and, you know, right-of-ways have been vacated, easements have been vacated, and you know, I'm sure at the time no one saw a future need. So I'm just saying, you know, like these things to me it's a very high bar to vacate right-of-way for me. And then in this case, I feel like there ought to be an associated cost with it to get, you know, I'd like 30 feet on my property. I'd like the city to give me 30 feet. But that's, you know, one council member, we'll see how the vote goes.
But the issue was the 30 feet belonged to the buyer of the property, and they had to give it up.
Probably not this buyer. Probably,
No.
you know,
The original buyer.
hundreds of years ago when the slick lots were done.
I understand. Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2020-32.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
No.
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. 4-1.
Thank you.
And a reminder, that was the introduction, first reading, so there'll be a second public hearing on this.
And then Deputy Mayor Matheny, do you want staff to look into a process or something to?
Sure.
I think it's fair.
This is the first of two.
In the future.
I would support that.
Okay, we have consensus.
Yeah.
Appraisal process for abandoned right-of-way.
All right.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, thanks, sir. Madam Clerk, will you read item number 5?
First public hearing and introduction for ordinance number 2020-33. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, closing, vacating, abandoning portions of utility easement located at 1721 Caroline Court, east of Missouri Avenue and north of East Clinton Drive, specifically described in the body of this ordinance, providing for severability, conflicts, and effective date.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. This is an abandonment of easement for property located at 1721 Carolyn Court. It is the first public hearing of 2. This property is located north of East Clinton Drive and east of Missouri Avenue. There are no public infrastructure agencies utilizing easement at this time. DRC reviewed this application on November 6th. Letters were sent out to the various affected parties, including all the public utility and utility companies or providers, and we received no letters of objection from any of the affected parties, and there are no conditions that are being applied to this abandonment of easement. This is an image that shows the property that's located within a subdivision, and there is a 7.5-foot and 10-foot wide utility easement to the side and rear of the property in the area that's generally shown in yellow on the screen. The property owner desires to locate an accessory structure on their property. The area that's on the southeast portion of the property. Oh, there we go. The portion that's in this area is their drain field for their septic system, so they're challenged with locating their accessory structure in that area. Consequently, they will need to locate it closer to this portion of the site, and that is why they are desiring to have the utility easement abandoned. They did speak with Public Works and asked to enter into utility agreement, however, into an easement agreement. However, that would not work because typically easement agreements are for fences, structures that can be removed. Once you install an accessory structure, it's a lot more difficult to pick it up and move in order to utilize the easement. So they requesting that the easement be abandoned. This is consistent with our infrastructure element of our comprehensive plan and a strategic goal. And as I said, we reviewed this on November 6th and have no objections to the abandonment of easement and ask that the City Council approve Ordinance 2020-33. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I understand the applicant is here. Is he wanting to speak to this item, or is he just here for questions? Would anyone else like to speak to this item? We'll have discussion and/or motion by council. No discussion?
I think this
Could I
is
entertain a motion.
Perfect candidate in the future of if the owner needs to or wants to reduce these easements, then it's some sort of fair appraisal process. In this instance, I don't think it should go away entirely. It could be reduced to maybe 5 feet on the sides, but if a dry utility provider or someone needs to put in cable to get, telephone, something to get somewhere else, I mean, it's definitely necessary for the public good.
Of note, if the applicant wishes to locate the accessory structure, they are required to set back 5 feet from the property line. So if you choose to make a motion to reduce the easement from 7.5 to 5 feet and 10 to 5 feet, that would be consistent with our requirement to require that the applicant locate the structure within 5 feet of the property line.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So easements, I don't have such a hard time with as much as right away, but I like Mr. Tracy's suggestion to make it equal to the setback, so that there is at least some corridor remaining.
Yes.
But it's freeing up some property that they can put their shed. I like that.
Is that a motion?
I'll let you make the motion. It was yours. I'll second it.
Well, does the applicant have any issue with it being reduced to 5 feet? I think they were here, right?
Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm
the
here.
setback's 5 feet anyways, right? So.
Right, yes.
Okay. So motion to approve with modification ordinance 2020-33 to reduce the easement on the sides and rear of the lot to 5 feet.
Second.
Have a motion from Councilmember Trace, second from Councilmember Matheny with the provisions that he has stated. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to item number 6. Madam Clerk, will you please read?
Public hearing for resolution number 2020-144R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, granting a conditional use to operate a schools, private and parochial at 2500 Canoe Creek Road, St. Cloud, Florida, as described in the body of this resolution.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. This is a conditional use for a piece of property located on Canoe Creek Road. And the case is CNU 20-0003. It's for a parochial school. And this item came before you previously at the September 10th City Council meeting. And there was a lot of discussion regarding this item, of items that was being requested. Let me go back. Yeah, let me go forward. One of the items that was requested was for a site plan and also to provide the AM peak hour trips, to provide an operational plan for the interior stacking, and to also provide the annual analysis of traffic impact. And the motion was made by Councilman Trace and to continue the item, and was seconded by Councilmember Askew, and the vote was 5-0 to continue the item. Just by way of background, if I can back up. The future land use on the property is low-density residential, the zoning is agricultural, and a parochial school is a conditional use within the agricultural zoning district. So on the surface, this would be a use that staff would recommend approval for based on the use that's being presented. It would be considered compatible with the general development pattern in the area, and there are no adverse impacts to existing public infrastructure at this time. As I said, it was continued for those missing items. It's consistent with the growth management policy, strategic goal for growth management, and staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-144R. The Planning Commission at their meeting on August 18th also recommended approval based on the 6 factual findings of the Land Development Code, Section 3.4.3.C.3.B, and ask the City Council recommend approval as well. The applicant is here to answer any questions.
Would the applicant like to speak to this item?
Good evening, council members. Jeremy Kibler, KDA Engineering, 2017 13th Street, St. Cloud, Florida, 34769. I'm here representing the owner. As council may remember, this is a request for a parochial school. It would be constructed in 2 different phases. We have an educational building facility consisting of grades K through 12 with a maximum capacity of 270 students. Phase 2 would consist of a gymnasium building and additional parking to support that particular additional use. We respectfully ask council to consider approval of this item tonight, and in doing so, would like you to consider the following items. After submission of the additional information, I believe we've been able to support that Canoe Creek Road in the future condition of the build-out of 2021 for this particular facility would remain at a level of service C for both the AM peak hour and the PM peak hour scenarios or future conditions. The project would be dedicating a 15-foot wide additional right-of-way for Canoe Creek Road and the future improvements to that facility. We would also be proposing and constructing a 5-foot sidewalk along the entire frontage on Canoe Creek Road. The project will be constructing right turn and storage lanes into the development, as well as left turn and storage lanes into the project. Kind of based on the discussion that we had with council at the last meeting, we decided instead of relying on an operational plan based on the current owners, understanding that council's concern was potentially the ownership could change and therefore the operational plan could change, we decided to permanently implement one-way pairs, and you can see that in the site plan, as far as how the circulation internally would occur for drop-off and pick-off of the students themselves. The request would also provide relief to the public school system, and we have, through coordination and discussion, been able to gain support of the neighboring residents as well. Again, Jeremy Kibler, and I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Does the council have any questions we'd like to ask the applicant?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I still have a problem. You got 270 cars that are going to be on that road constantly, and you've already got about 360 new homes that are going to be built at Stevens Plantation. Everything's going to go in and out on Canoe Creek Road. You factored all that in there too?
Yes, sir, we have. We've actually factored in a growth of 4.7% over the next year. And actually, if you look at ridership of the roadways during the time that we're dealing with now with the COVID-19, you'll actually see decreases across the board. So we've actually taken into account what we would consider kind of the highest impact, which really at this case doesn't appear that it will remain that way. But we've taken into account what we think is that condition and a 4.7% growth, in fact, over the next year.
Well, just on a two-lane road to me, and you come up to these red lights there, Nolte Road and stuff like that, it takes 2 or 3 lights to get through, and that's now. And you're talking about in the next few years that you're going to have 270 homes, and there's already going to be 360 more. That just keeps adding and adding and adding on a two-lane road. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. To me, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. If you'll stand by in case there's some other questions, we're
Thank
going
you, Mr. Mayor.
to open it up to our public comment. Margaret Peterson. I'll get you next.
Good evening, council members. My name is Margaret Peterson. I live with my husband at 3121 Pauley's Loop North in St. Cloud, specifically in Stevens Plantation in the neighborhood called The Grove. The east end of our property adjoins the property in question, the full east boundary of our property. We purchased the home there about 1.5 years ago for many reasons, but one of those reasons was we love the privacy in our backyard. And we'd like to be able to maintain that privacy. Our best wishes would be for that area to not be developed, but realizing that there is growth in the area in St. Cloud, our next best wish is for it to be developed, but to be able to maintain the privacy in our backyard. And in our discussions with Mr. Kibler, he has assured us that we will maintain a 25-foot buffer between our property and the school property, that there will be a retention pond built on the property, and that will help the drainage on our property. We don't flood, but it will definitely help the drainage there. We like the school idea. We'd rather not have to start over, and maybe there might be an apartment complex that's 3 stories high, and they may not offer that 25-foot buffer, and there goes the privacy in our backyard. With the school also, typically they're out in the late afternoon, and so we wouldn't have noise on the property in the late afternoon or evening, not on the weekends, and not during the summertime. So for us as a property, an adjacent property owner, we feel like this school is, if it's going to be developed, this is the best way to go for us, with the buffer, with the quietness, with the better drainage, and plus we have some wildlife that we like. They have eaten a little bit of my husband's produce from his garden, but we do like the possums and the raccoons and birds and things that come, and we feel like that will be able to stay there with the 25-foot buffer. I'm not really qualified to address the traffic issue, but I have looked up the school start and end times, and they are staggered. And the latest release time for the school should be before the afternoon traffic rush comes through there. So just as a property owner, an adjacent property owner, my husband and I are in favor of this school. We feel like it'll help us maintain the privacy in our backyard, which is very important for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dwayne Norman.
Good evening. Dwayne Norman, 3551 Buckingham Court. Congratulations, everyone. Not against the school. I think the school is a great idea. I just, as everybody's talking about, I just want to make sure we take extreme focus on the stacking with that school. The way Canoe Creek Road is now, it would be a nightmare. And then with trying to, I did like the idea he says about donating more easement for the widening of Canoe Creek Road, because even if Canoe Creek Road's widened to 4 lanes, if you have stacking coming out of that school, even on a 4-lane road, it's going to be a nightmare. And if St. Cloud Elementary on Buttinger is any example, we need to try to get as much of that stacking on the property. And I don't know if at a city you can manage that, or if it becomes, just being a kind neighbor, but somehow asking them not to allow stacking, an hour before school lets out and things of that sort. If there's any way, I don't know if you can put that into any kind of code or what have you, but school's not a bad idea. Just want to make sure we worry about that stacking. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Would anyone else in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I'm glad you just walked back up there. Can you put up on the screen the stacking plan?
Oh, I didn't know you were gonna. I don't have it. It's in your books, but
It wasn't. So when this came up in the last meeting, I was pretty adamant about it was going to be a very, very high bar for any revisions or proposed changes that were brought to talk me into putting the school here. I think the parcel is too small. Mr. Kibler did do, what we asked, and did some traffic analysis and a little bit of site work. This school is proposed to have 270 students. The stacking that's shown on the exhibit that was provided to us in our packet showed 51 spaces. 12 of those spaces were beyond the school dropout. So basically you have 39, stacking for 39 cars on the school, 270 students. So I don't have children, but I've picked up my niece before and nephews before at school, and everybody gets there an hour beforehand and stacks up. We all know it. Everybody gets there an hour beforehand. The grandparents and everybody's like, I got to pick up little Johnny. I want to be the first one there. And they all stack up. So they're going to stack up and then come out onto Canoe Creek Road and then stack all along the road, stack in the median, stack on the sides of the road. The people that live in Stevens Plantation, they'll be parking on your streets and having the kid walk out and come to your house. And in my experience and my job, it is not manageable by the school. The school does not manage it because it happens all the time in every school that we have. So, my position was we shouldn't be allowing any more schools on these major roadways because of just the traffic impact that they cause. I think maybe, the school would work there if they bought maybe the parcel to the north and maybe tie into the Stevens North property and access the school through Stevens North, do something like that. But this parcel is way too small. I shared the site plan with the Transportation and Transit Department at Osceola County because this will have to be approved by Osceola County. They said they would not approve this intersection layout. It's got opposing left turns. There's a lot of issues with that intersection. I know it's just like a bubble plan, but they said this would not be approved. And you can see on this plan here, they said there's 51, stacking for 51 cars, but you'll see, like, if you drop the kids off, there's 12 cars in the queue trying to get out. So those people are going to be fighting traffic. I just think it's going to be a nightmare. Canoe Creek Road already has its traffic issues. And the property is, in my opinion, is just not large enough for this number of students. Without, if you can provide stacking for 270 cars, we can have another conversation. But for me, it's not. This will just be a nightmare of traffic and piling out onto Canoe Creek Road.
Thank you. Mr. Kibler, you want to speak to that?
Audrey.
Mr. Mayor, may I just
Yes, you
add
may.
one more
Go
thing,
ahead.
please? Thank you. So we also received a letter from David Peterson and Margaret Wren Peterson that is in support of...
Could you speak
I'm
closer to the mic,
sorry.
please?
Yeah, that is in support of this request, and I'm entered into the record.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Kibler?
Good evening, Jeremy Kibler, KDA Engineering again. I mean, 270 vehicles is just really isn't realistic. Yes, it's 270 students. In this particular case, you know, this particular operation, this user is in operation right now. And the typical family will have an average of 2.6 students per vehicle, per family. A lot of those may share rides as well. I mean, you're not going to have the exact number of students and the exact number of vehicles show up. It's just not, just never happens that way. If that really is a sticking point, and we need to make that a condition, if that really is the holdup here, allow us to at least try to show 270 vehicle stacking with the next step. At least give us that opportunity. I would say, as far as the alignment, it is an offset intersection. It does meet DOT criteria. It does meet county criteria. We haven't gone as far as trying to permit the offsite connection because we have to have the zoning in place, the conditional use in place to do so. But we feel very confident that it does meet all those conditions and it can be done safely. I don't know if there's any other specific questions regarding the stacking, but again, you're never going to have 270 students and 270 exact vehicles show up at that time. We also were just trying to show interior how many could be stacked at one particular time. Those are going to be staggered. The school opens up and actually receives students for a period of about an hour and a half. And so the drop-off is spread over that particular time. The AM peak hour is the most stringent, and that is where you're going to see the most number of vehicles. So like I said, you have that period of time, over about an hour and a half, where it's staggered, people are dropped off, you can exit the property. You know, we showed that something like 45 vehicles within a 20-minute period, and we've actually provided 51 in this particular case. Again, if the stacking is still an issue for council, give us the opportunity. If you want to make that a condition, we'd be happy to try to prove that and come up with a different configuration. We think it's doable. This particular operator currently does have a school. It's functioning great, just looking for a permanent location, and we'd love to be a part of the city.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments by council?
Miss,
Councilmember Trace.
I'll let you finish.
I just had a follow-up. So
Go
I
ahead.
don't think the morning is the problem so much with the stacking, it's the afternoon. Because in the morning, people drive in, drop their kid off and go to work. It's the afternoon. And I mean, I've just seen it time and time again. That's why I just, you know, I don't know if we need to create an ordinance in the city that says no more schools on major roadways. I mean, just, you need to like move them off of the major thoroughfares to stop, you know, impacting the traffic. And it's just my 2 cents. You see it all over the county. Just drive by any school. Drive by any school in the summertime and then drive by the school in school time, and it's like a whole different experience.
Thank you. Councilmember Trace.
Mr. Kibler, so I came to the same conclusion as Deputy Mayor Matheny of only 39 spots because the first two are just going to sit there. In addition, everyone is going to be waiting on that one person making a left turn. There's no way for anyone else to slide by making a right turn out of there for that one person taking a left through a cycle or two of the light down at Nolte. You know, to me, with this intersection, you know, it'll be up to the county if it meets their requirements of the offset. I don't really think it will, and they'll force you to move it further up or down the road. I'd personally like it to be a right in, right out, but then people are just going to be making illegal U-turns in the middle of Canoe Creek Road to try to get back into there as well.
Right.
To me, at a minimum, the entire loop of the parking lot needs to be built for that amount of stacking. It doesn't, you know, the interior parking spots don't have to be done yet, but that entire loop has to be done just to create that double or even triple stacking of what's on here. And then, this is a school by choice. It's not like kids are zoned to it. So if there are major issues in the future, the parents will help regulate it with the principal and the administrative staff. And then also, if it's bad enough, they'll just go somewhere else, and then the charter ends up moving on or something. So at least there's some of that where it'll self-regulate itself. It's not like, it just happens. So to me, my biggest concern is that entrance, and then, the stacking, but I think the stacking, we can get a lot more capacity on the site. To me, it's that entrance being unsafe.
Councilmember Trace, did you say you would prefer to see a right in, right out only, or the full access?
Parents will still do crazy things to get in or out of there, no matter what. We could put a big pork chop right there in the front. People will still be hopping curbs to get there. I see people dropping off their kids on the side of Boggy Creek Road, where traffic's going by at 50 miles an hour for them to get out and cross the street to get to the elementary school and the high school there. So it's just, there's no way we can fix it. That's why we brought up at, might have been during this first hearing a couple months ago, of that 192 code needs to be on all the main corridors of certain uses, just not being at the main frontage. I don't know if we're having issues with CJIS. That's further off of 192. That was, with all their stacking and their issues. I haven't really heard any concerns from the police department or any parents. I have a lot of friends that their kids go there, and they seem to be doing well. But it's a couple hundred feet off of 192 and not right up on the main road.
If I may.
Do you have something else you want to share?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one thing that's important to note is that, everybody has kind of a visual in their mind of these middle schools, the K through 8s, the high schools, the combos, and we're talking about schools that have a capacity of 800 to 15, sometimes 1,600 students. So it's a much, much larger scale than what we're dealing with here. As far as the PM goes, this particular school would exit around 2:20, 2:30. There's multiple daycare and after-school type of programs. There also are bus programs. They have anywhere from 30 to 50 students that actually are bused in this particular case. So that's something also to consider. We're happy to look at any alternatives, any restrictions. Again, this is kind of one of the situations where the county does control Canoe Creek Road, so it's not something, we took what we thought was the best approach with the offset intersection. If that's something that the council would like to see and restrict, as far as a potential motion for approval, we certainly would appreciate that.
Any other questions from council? Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the other point I wanted to make with the buses is that could change at any moment. He's saying, 50 students are bused, but it depends on what kids are coming to the school.
That's true.
It'll change every school year, and maybe the school doesn't have money one year, and they say everybody's got to drive their kid in. I just see this every day in my job, and the stacking is a huge, huge, huge issue. The number of spaces that are provided is just not adequate, and I think there's some public comment that wants to be made too.
Hello, my name is Fox Baldwin. I'm actually a principal at Osceola Christian Preparatory School. It is actually a school that partners with St. Cloud Christian Preparatory School, which is the school that is looking to relocate here. I was wanting to provide a little bit of insight on our school operation, especially the after school, because that is a main concern with the traffic with after school, as you have mentioned. So our pickup time starts about 2:30, and it goes about 3:30 for regular pickup. And in that time, we have about 249. We currently have 249 students enrolled at the Kissimmee location I'm at, and we have about 12 spots available for pickup there. And we have never had any cars out onto that main road. In my time there in the last 3 years, I've never seen it. because of the array of after-school activities we offer that allow for students to be involved and not actually all be picked up in that 2:30 to 3:30 slot. And also our busing, we actually dismiss that prior to our parent pickup, so we actually have a large amount of students that leave before the parent pickup. And just an example, we started our soccer conference this week, and we have 40 kids out of our 249 kids signed up for that. So those kids would be staying past that 2:30 to 3:30 time slot and would not be all leaving at that time. So when I think of this 51 available spots or 39 on property, I think this is more than what we would actually be required in at our active operation. And I see this as a very good buffer for any concerns, just from the active operation that I'm a part of at this moment right now. Just want to give some insight on what we're doing.
Thank you. Have any questions? Any other comment from council? Councilmember Askew?
First of all, I appreciate everything you do, teachers. I wish there was more of them, and what you do is phenomenal. It's really hard for us, I think, up here when you start thinking about Canoe Creek Road. I just drove down it the other day, and I was amazed how long it took me to go and pass in front of the Walmart down there.
Yeah.
It's really hard for us to approve things like this when we know we're going to put a huge demand on that road that already has a huge demand. So I hope you understand where we're trying to struggle with up here as well. So
Yeah, and I'm also coming here as a person in this community. I actually live on Hickory Tree Road, and I drive on this road every day to get to work and from work, and I'm working school hours, so my commute is starting when kids are getting dropped off and kids are being brought back, and I have not seen any effect in that time. It's not the peak hour for traffic. Actually, our pickup and drop-off time, my commute for a normal school is not during that peak time. I've gone to the grocery store whenever it's not that time, and yeah, the traffic can be a little more than that time that I'm actually traveling to go for those hours that our school will be operating.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly a big proponent of schools and a big supporter of what you're trying to do. But I'm just in agreement. The location of the school and the site plan that's been provided for us, locating it right there on Canoe Creek Road and the small size of your site, I just think creates a significant traffic problem because I live right around the corner in Veranda Lakes. And I see the traffic every day there on Nolte and then also, but especially on Canoe Creek Road. And I think we're asking for some real challenges and a lot of complaints because the biggest thing, people stand here and they tell us, oh, it's not going to be a problem, but then it is a problem.
Yeah.
And so the lack of access there, I think is going to be a real problem. I'd have a hard time supporting this.
And something I would encourage you is our current location in St. Cloud is just over 200 students right now. And I would encourage you to see how that pickup and drop off is going right now. And that would kind of give you an idea of how many cars are coming at one time. And you'd see it's not the expectation that you're seeing right now. The best thing you can do is go off what's currently happened and look at what the buffer is already being allotted to this. The buffer is huge compared to what is currently going on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to allow you one more time, but make it quick.
Thank you. Dwayne Norman, 3551 Buckingham Court. Just a couple things. Mr. Trace, you're right. Some parents aren't the most responsible, but that would have to be a right turn only if it goes through. And the second thing is, I haven't been to a Christian school since Lock Haven a long time ago, but in the public schools I go to, they don't allow double stacking. It's all single file. So the only way I can see is if the school went all the way around the building or something, but where my kids go to St. Cloud Elementary, they would never let you double stack like that because kids walking between cars.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kibler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeremy Kibler, KDA Engineering. Just real quick, as far as the double stacking or the double pairs, I know Councilmember Trace touched on it before. This is being done across the county in the public school system, sometimes even as much as 4 wide. So it is consistent. It is something that we've seen that works. We know that it works. Another thing I would offer to the council is that if Mr. Manzares can advise us, this is a conditional use. If council were to recommend approval with conditions, this is something that can, it's not permanent. It can be revoked. It can be taken away. We're taking a risk and moving forward. We'd like that opportunity to prove that we can make this work safely and efficiently. And if we can't, that's our risk. You can take that away. It is a conditional use, and it's not a permanent use. So please keep that in mind, and maybe Mr. Manzares can offer some advice with that regard.
Mr. Manzares, would you like to speak to that item?
Well, Mr. Gibler's right. This is a conditional use permit, and as you're aware, conditional use permits are exactly that. It's not permitted as a matter of right, but it can be allowed in a particular area with appropriate conditions. So if you feel like you wish to approve it with the condition related to the traffic flow and the stacking, you certainly could do that, and you certainly could put it in the conditional use permit, which would mean that it could be revoked at any time if the traffic flow doesn't work.
Councilman Matheny.
Okay, I'm sure it theoretically could be revoked, but the reality of it, that's never going to happen. You're going to have 270 students going to the school, and then you're going to say, well, it's no longer allowed to be a school. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I mean,
No.
if we approve it, in my opinion,
It's done.
It's done.
It's done deal.
Do we have any other discussion from council? Sir, I'll let you speak. Please state your name.
Pete Baldwin. I'm actually one of the 2 directors, owners, Stephen Whiteacre. I hear you guys loud and clear. So everybody here is all for us to have a school here. Why wouldn't you? It's a free resource for the community of one of the safest designed schools in the country that reaches those children who aren't making it in a traditional school in the larger classrooms, who are struggling maybe with their learning, who maybe need that one-on-one attention that we give. I don't think anybody here in this building doubts that. I hear you loud and clear, and I agree with you that conditional use isn't going to get revoked. And the thing about having a small property, the reason is we're going to have a tiny school compared to everybody else. But I still hear the concern about traffic. And I don't know how to adjust that, but if we could shrink it down where we can see the whole property, I want to make a proposal that I think would make sense to everybody. Is there a way to do that?
The whole property isn't on that graphic.
No, I don't mean to be argumentative, but you can't see the retention pond, the gym, and all that area. Thank you. And owners right here on the fly trying to listen to you, if we remove the gymnasium totally out of the picture, and we could create overflow parking in the meantime, I think that there's plenty of parking on that 5 acres approximately, a little less than 5 acres, for that school. In our school design, that middle area is a courtyard, not all building. There's not a hallway in that entire design. But what I would say, let us get on the property with just the school and prove to you how amazing our drop-off and pickup is. And I agree with you. Our problem is not drop-off. Drop-off is get out of the car and go to class. Boom, 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 boom. There is zero wait. Maybe we over here just less than a couple miles from here. Drop-off is 2 cars. The principal's out there opening the door, have a nice day. Open the door, have a nice day. It is after school. But we do have, when you think busing, you're thinking 10 buses. We have 1 bus and 1 van. And maybe you're right. Maybe nobody wants to bus that year. Let's take worst case scenario. We have aftercare until 6 p.m. We also have clubs and other things. You've heard from other people about that. But my point of it is, if we take the gym out of that, totally, we could run 100 cars through there. We average about 2.7 students who are not going to 3 different schools. It blesses families to be able to drop off their little one in elementary, middle school, and high school in one place, because it gives them feel safer. If something happens in our community, they feel great about it. There's a lot of reasons it's a benefit. But anyways, there's plenty of room that way. We, as the owners, would agree to do nothing in phase 2 with the gymnasium unless there's 100% convinced that this does not become a detriment to the community and the traffic. And, you know, St. Cloud's a wonderful community. It is going to continue to grow. People want to be here. We can't stop that. But what you can do is have somebody here that's going to make a school that's wonderful for families and make St. Cloud better, and it don't cost the taxpayers a penny. And we're going to show you how great our drop-off and pickup is going to be, where you're going to want us to expand it for the community. But if we don't, it never goes in. And as you can see, that building is 145 feet by 160 feet square. It's small. Each classroom is the individual classroom. There's 15 classrooms. That's it. When we say 270, that's the maximum amount. So all I'm saying is, if we remove the gymnasium and have all that land, can you give us a chance to prove to you that the school works before we build anything else there? It's just mathematically, it's impossible for that not to work. I can tell you, we got 6 campuses. We reach about 1,500 kids between Osceola and Polk County, and we're changing lives for kids that are not making it in other schools. These kids would drop out. These are kids that would give up and not go to college, and they're going to college, becoming doctors and lawyers, making perfect scores on SATs and ACT. These are kids that nobody else even wants. You're going to give them a place where they're going to come every day and be loved in a small environment, get one-on-one teaching. And if you say no to this, you're not only taking this away from the people in here today that said they want it, you're taking it from my grandson who's going to go there. You're going to take it from other kids who are going to a school up the road that's not as safe as that. And if, God forbid, there's another school shooting somewhere that's attacking us, this school will protect them. It's the safest school in America. It's going to give them brand new facilities, the best green space. That's what we're doing. Maybe there's a little sacrifice, but what if they do put an apartment complex in there? What is going to go there? Nobody's going to stick cows on it. You put something in there that's going to change the community for better, and are you going to take that away or give it a chance to make it better? And I'm passionate about this because I see them kids every day, and I see their lives changing. And that's what it's about. It's not whether or not you got to wait another 10 seconds at a light. I'm telling you right now, it won't make a difference if we take the gym out of the picture. And we'll prove it before anything else gets built. Stephen?
So
Need to
Stephen
state your-
Whitaker,
Go ahead.
Director of St. Cloud and Osceola and the other locations, Christian Preparatory School. I also live in St. Cloud, 5000 Silver Thistle Lane. Listening to this, I could echo twice as loud what Mr. Baldwin said, but I also, for a frame of reference, the total number of students going to this school is, I don't know the exact math, don't quote me for sure, but that's like 3rd grade at Michigan Avenue. And for sure, it's not 6th, 7th, or 8th grade at the middle school. It's not even all the 6th graders. So I think our idea of all those cars needing to come in and out is, that's all the frame of reference, and that's the bad stuff that we can think about. I don't know if you know that where the school is currently is actually on 192. And I wonder any stacking has happened, or if you've noticed our student body or any of the parents, anybody? You know that we're right now actually a school right on 192. Michigan Avenue in Kissimmee is a lot bigger road than I think even Canoe Creek. And we have this model, this exact school already built in Point Siena. And it has a less of a stacking ability, and we've never been out in the road. And we have no busing there. So if I was gonna give like absolute 100% proof, I go, we have a less stacking driveway in the exact building that we want to build in Point Siena, and every single day, not a single car gets out on the road. New Dimensions is out on the road. Chosen Generation is out on the road. The schools around are out on the road. So I know exactly what you're saying. I just know with this size and this layout, like what Mr. Baldwin said, I mean, we practice this every single day in 6 locations. And this is in response and trying to do everything that we can to help you guys know that we're like not even the size of a 3rd grade in an elementary school total. Thank you.
Do you have any further discussion by council? Do we have a motion? Part of the problem is that the numbers you've given us are a problem. And the only way we can make a decision is based on the site plan that you've given us. And on the road that we have, we're all just struggling with that at this point. Or at least I am. Mr. Keeble, one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the time. Again, Jeremy Kibler, KDA Engineering. I just want to remind the council, it's a conditional use. The site plan, you can condition the approval. This is a zoning type of approval. You can add conditions, and if we can't meet those conditions, we won't build it. We can't proceed to the next step. So we respectfully would ask consideration of what council feels would make this work as a parochial school. Condition it such, and give us that opportunity. Respectfully, give us that opportunity. If we can't do it, we can't do it. We won't even be able to go to the next step and start construction at all. So there really is no risk at that point. You condition it based on what you need to see, what would make the council members feel comfortable, and give us that opportunity. We would greatly and respectfully request that. Thank you.
Mayor?
So,
I guess I'll ask council, we don't want a school there, or are we looking for more stacking? If we're looking for half the stacking, that's like 135 cars in there, or are we just no school there whatsoever? That's sort of like the direction we're heading.
personally, I'm not opposed to a school there. I'm just opposed to the stacking plans. They could come up with a better stacking plan. I think it would certainly have my support. I'm just speaking for myself. Others?
Okay, I'll throw out a motion, see if it sticks. So motion to approve Resolution 2020-144R with the condition that the loop road of the parking lot goes all the way around the parking lot through the Phase 1 and Phase 2 area, and that the entrance is a right-in, right-out only, still having that right turn lane into the property, but just right-in, right-out only, with a pork chop, signage, everything enforceable, so that it flows in and out as good as possible. And then because of that, the entrance will likely have to move somewhere on a different spot on Canoe Creek Road, but that's for you guys to figure out during engineering. But motion to approve with the longer loop road for stacking and a right-in, right-out entrance only.
Do I have a second?
Can I ask
Councilmember Trace, ask you.
Can I ask for amendment? Are we shooting for a particular amount of cars that are stacking, or are we going to leave it up to Mr. Jeremy Kibler?
I think if they take this plan and go all the way around, if I have to say 84 cars.
I graduated in '84. Okay. I'll second it.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mr. Mayor, before you...
Yes, sir.
Can I just ask Mr. Anderson a question? There was a comment that there was an agreement with regard to the 25-foot buffer. Is that in the code? Does that need to be in the conditional use permit?
I don't have my site plan anymore, but it's all these buffers as they are on here. Sorry, if that needs to be a part of the
I just want to confirm
motion.
that.
Yeah.
So.
Right. It needs to be part of the condition.
Okay. So we need... So we need to make sure that that is part of this motion then.
Included in the motion is a 25-foot medium buffer on the north, 25-foot medium buffer on the west, 25-foot medium buffer approximately 400 feet of the southern boundary, and a 10-foot medium buffer with wall for the remainder, and a 20-foot buffer on the east boundary. The 25-foot buffers will remain in as natural of a condition as it is possible.
You second that?
I'll still second that.
Thank you.
Are we thoroughly confused? You got that?
Can I just say for the record,
Yes, sir.
to clarify that while you are in fact imposing conditions on this conditional use, which is the zoning, you are not in fact approving a site plan that comes back to DRC for staff review.
Correct.
So whatever conditions you're imposing,
At a
you will
minimum, these
ensure that they're
conditions.
addressed on the site plan.
Yes.
Is that clear, Mr. Manzares?
I'm sorry?
Is that clear?
That's clear.
All right.
The question has been asked of whether the site plan will come back to them.
Thank you.
The site plan does come back to DRC. It doesn't come back to the
DRC.
city council.
Yeah, it
Doesn't come back to the city council.
So do you want it to come back to council?
I don't.
Any other discussion then?
So just to clarify, if we approve this tonight in our second reading, we're not going to see a stacking map?
No, this is the only approval item for this. If you
Okay.
set the conditions, then the project will have to be designed and developed in accordance with those conditions. And staff's job would be to make sure that those conditions are met in the site plan that goes through DRC. And if they can't meet the conditions, then they won't get approval.
Those are tough conditions. Okay. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Cooper?
No.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
No.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
Wow. Madam Clerk, you please read item number 7.
Public hearing for resolution number 2020-263R, a resolution of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, granting conditional use to operate a body work and painting use at 1107 Eastern Avenue, St. Cloud, Florida, describing the body of this resolution.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. Excuse me. This is resolution number 2020-263R. It is for a conditional use to allow spray painting in a auto facility. The official land use is commercial, the zoning is business commercial, and as I said, it's for auto body work and painting, and this isn't allowed as a conditional use in the business commercial zoning district. It is compatible with the general pattern in the area, and there are no adverse impacts to city facilities at this time. It's consistent with the strategic plan goals for economic development and for growth management. DRC, at their meeting on October 7th, recommended approval of resolution 2020-263R. The Planning Commission, at their meeting on October 20th, recommended approval of resolution 2020-263R based on the 6 factual matters of the Land Development Code, and asked that the City Council also recommend approval of resolution 2020-263R. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is the applicant here?
I don't know. Doesn't appear that way.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to this item? We'll have discussion and a motion by council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Athena, second from Councilmember Askew. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
No.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Madam Clerk, to read item number 8.
Resolution number 2020-253R, a resolution of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending Resolution Number 2019-169R, which adopted the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for the City of St. Cloud, finding the city manager has certified their prior year fund balances and our current revenues available in the budget for additional projects and programs in the various funds not included in the original 2019-2020 budget, requiring the budget to be increased to include said additional fundings in the variable funds and making supplemental appropriations within the funds.
Thank you. Ms. Clausen.
Good evening, Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. Good evening to the Council, City Manager, and City Attorney. In front of you is Budget Amendment Number 7 as per Section 2-2112, I'm sorry. It is the fiscal year 1920 adjustments and/or final allocations for fiscal year 1920 that we'll walk through. And as always, per the City Code, this is for the fiscal year, certifying that the City Manager, there are available appropriations for revenues in excess of the estimated budget. In the general fund, I'm going to walk it through every fund for everybody and talk about the highlights and the components of each of the funds for you. Sorry, I'm flipping pages, so bear with me. Total increase for the general fund was $320,000. These increases to the general fund were for the expenditures of salaries and wages for legal services, administrative support, had a position that was needed to be funded and was incorrectly allocated, so we shifted over to the general fund where it should be, and then paid for that administrative support. This is a total of $320,000 being decreased from City Council contingency and increased in salary and wages for the $20,000 that you see there, and the Police Department salaries and wages and pension expense. The total, as noted, is $320 with the allocations as I have annotated them. In the 1%, there is no net increase. It's zero increase. We are returning the unspent, unencumbered funds for two projects totaling $415,271. The projects allocated for here are PR 1905, Landscape and Irrigation for City Hall, and PW 1707, Downtown Revitalization. In the traffic impact, there is no net increase. We are again returning unspent budgeted funds to contingency for one project totaling $39,042. This is for project number Papa Whiskey 1602 Stevens North Road. Excuse me, PW 1602. In your capital projects, $1,994,128 increase to prior year fund balance. Again, we are returning unspent projects to this funding source. Allocated in those is PW 1901. This is the parking lots at Lakeshore that is being returned for all unspent items. In the Recreation Impact Fund, the total net increase is zero. We are returning, as noted, the $1,450,000 for the one project. In the Police Impact Fee, total net fund increase is zero. We are returning the unspent budgeted funds to contingency for project number PS 1704 for the Police Impound Garage totaling $89,815. Utility funds, a net increase of zero. We are returning again unspent budgeted funds for 13 projects totaling $1,593,563. Staff is recommending approval of 2020-253R and requires City Council requested action to approve 2020-253R. If there are any questions, I'm open to answer them for you.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or motion by council. Councilmember Trace.
So I have a question, and it's just about the way this looks in the sheet that we have. Under the traffic impact fee, rec impact fee, police impact fee fund, it shows the impact fee fund, and then it goes to capital project fund, and it looks like the money moves from the impact fee fund to the capital project fund. But I just want to make sure that if it's impact fee dollars, it stays in those dollars because it has to be restricted. I just want to make sure it doesn't get kind of shuffled through and then it's general operating or anything like that.
Sure, let me explain what we're reporting here. So what's happening is that this was a, PW 1602 was a capital project which goes into the 300 fund, which is funded by traffic impact fees. So we're reporting to you that we are going to bring back, or the increase of 39,000 back into the traffic impact fee fund and reduce it from your capital fund. Capital fund makes no money other than the transfers that are going in from all the funding sources from the different funds. So we are replenishing it back to the initiating funding source, in this case, the traffic impact fee, the recreation impact fee, and the police impact fee. They'll go back to your impact fee funds, but they were allocated in the capital fund for when the project was going live.
Okay, because in those 3 instances, or there's 4 instances where it says interfund transfer from 1% fund, it just looks funny in there. So I'll show you afterwards. I just want to make sure that I said that on the record, that it's going back into those.
Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Do we have any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Could I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Athenia, second from Councilmember Cooper. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Colazo.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 9.
Public hearing for resolution number 2020-277R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, granting approval of a pain medical license for Pain Management Clinic located at 2801 17th Street, Unit 202, St. Cloud, Florida. Describe as body of this resolution.
Mr. Anderson.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. This is Resolution 2020-277R. It is a requirement of the City Code for a pain management license. This project is for Palm Tree Interventional Pain Management, PLLC. By way of background, before I go into the discussion of this item, this Palm Tree Interventional Pain Management Clinic is currently located within the city of St. Cloud, further to the east. And they were approved back in 2017, and at that time were in operation. They have been in operation ever since. However, they failed to renew their pain management license, and as such, we have since addressed that item with the applicant. However, to move from their current location to a new location, they must apply for a new pain management license. The license does not transfer from their existing facility. So that is why they are coming before you for a new license for the same operation at a new location. The existing zoning on the property of which they're moving for is P professional within the city. The future land use is private institutional. The land use is compatible with the surrounding area, and there are no adverse impacts to city facilities at this time. It's consistent with the growth management goal for a vibrant, progressive, and diverse community. And DNC and staff recommends approval with conditions of Resolution 2020-277R, and asks that the City Council also approve Resolution 2020-277R with the following conditions: that it complies with City Code Article 5, that it complies with the physician affidavit that's included as Exhibit A, that it complies with the clinic owner attestation, and that the applicant complete and submit a background check within 180 days of approval. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I believe the applicant is also here.
Is
to
the
answer
applicant
questions.
would like to speak to this? Mr. Griffin?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, let me congratulate all of our re-elected city councilors on a job well done. Thank you. I'm here representing Palm Tree Interventional Pain Management, Dr. Jason Song. And I'm accompanied by Dr. Song as well. He's sitting back in the audience. Dr. Song basically moved his practice to St. Cloud as a result of being recruited by St. Cloud Hospital. Back in 2017, St. Cloud Hospital did a needs assessment on the types of practices that were needed here in St. Cloud and were not existing here at the time. With that, they interviewed several pain management clinics and selected Dr. Song and invited him to come to St. Cloud, and he complied and brought his practice here. While operating at the site that he had been occupying, he received a conditional use from the city, and obviously one of the conditions was that he had to renew the conditional use on an annual basis. He thought that he didn't have to do that because he was getting his business license, and all of the other licenses that were necessary to conduct this practice were all being renewed and kept in good standing. And then after a few years of operating out there, he made a decision that he would like to invest in the city of St. Cloud. He purchased the second floor of the condominium medical building that we built right down the street here on 17th Street. And he was allowed to move down there, on a temporary license. And we're here simply tonight as a housekeeping item to clear up the fact that the license the conditional use needs to be renewed and approved by the city council once again. And if there's any questions I feel comfortable to ask them. And if I can't answer them, Dr. Song is here as well.
If you'll give us just a moment, would anybody in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion, questions.
Mr. Griffin,
Council?
can you just state your name
Mr.
into the
Sturgeon?
record, please?
Thomas Griffin, 109 East 13th Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
That's what I was going to bring.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. For the record, I met with Mr. Griffin and Mr. Theobald in the back of the room about this item. And I told the gentleman the only issue I wanted to just check with the police department to see if there had been any issues. And during my agenda review, I did ask that question, and they said there had not been any issues with him in his previous practice. So I don't have an issue with the renewal. The only thing I would like to change is maybe that 180 days for the background check. I mean, the license is valid for 1 year, so we're giving people 6 months to do a background check. If there was and I don't know if background check takes a long time, but could we make it like 60 days or something? Like, do you think that would be?
90 days is pretty.
90 days.
90 days would be a fair
180
number.
just seems pretty exorbitant, like when it's only a 1 year license. So I'd like to see that maybe come down to 90 days.
We'd have to. Deputy Mayor,
And also, all of the other licenses that are required by the state through Department of Business and Professional Management and everyone else, they all do background checks. So the background checks are kept current. They're done on an annual basis automatically.
And I was just going to suggest, we'll take that back. I need to look at the ordinance that established the licensing. I do not recall whether that's actually in the ordinance or not.
Okay.
So if it is, we can obviously bring it back.
That's just a wish of mine. If we're able to do it quicker, that just seems, I'm sure Mr. Song, his will be fine, but, for other folks, maybe that seems a little exorbitant.
And you agree to that, right?
I agree to that.
No problem. Any other discussion?
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
And trying to get the background check faster than 180 days.
And it's with staff's conditions, right? There were 3 or 4 conditions in there.
Right.
Okay.
And the conditions that are in the.
And a second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Matheny, a second from Councilmember Askew with the conditions.
It was Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper, yes, I'm sorry.
It's hard to tell with the mask.
Right. Are we ready? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Brings us to council action item number 1. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-254R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving a water and wastewater service agreement for Narcoossee Land Venture LLC for residential development named the Twin Lakes Phase 8, an amenity center located in the unincorporated areas of Osceola County, east side of Hickory Tree Road, north side of Pine Tree Road, south of Nolte Road, east of Hickory Tree Road, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement and providing an effective date.
Ms. Craig,
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
state your name and
This is Marjorie Craig. I'm the Environmental Utilities Director. This particular item, it has been brought before you before. We're bringing it back. It's Narcoossee Land Ventures Twin Lakes Phase 8 an amenity center. One of the questions was it going to be age restricted? The answer to that question is no. And it's the east side of Hickory Tree Road, north of Pine Tree Road, south of Nolte Road, and east of Hickory Tree Road. So as you know, if it's outside the city limits, but within the utility service area, we bring it before you for approval for the water and wastewater agreement. Here's another, shows the location. And we recommend approving the agreement. There are also some site renderings and elevations that y'all saw last time, just to go through those kind of quickly so you can see them again. And you talked about it being sort of a model subdivision. I'll go back to okay, that's the last elevation. So staff recommends approval.
thank you. Is the applicant here? Would he like to speak to this? Please step forward, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Tom Sullivan with the Gray Robinson Law Firm, 301 East Pine Street in Orlando on behalf of Twin Lakes on this water and wastewater agreement request. First, just wanted to say we appreciate staff's recommendation for approval and their presentation. I'd just like to make a couple quick points. First, I believe and certainly hope that this community is recognized as a high-quality project, and we've enjoyed a good working relationship with the city now going back over the last 6 or 7 years. And just a point of clarification, although this particular phase is referred to as Phase 8, as you can see in the presentation, but that's because it's labeled as Phase 8 on the county PSP that was already approved. It's actually the third phase in terms of what's actually been built to date, so just wanted to point that out. We have done 2 prior agreements with the city for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the project. Those agreements included us oversizing the utility lines as requested by the city, and we've always done what we said we would do under those agreements, and the city has as well. Those agreements, as you know, include the standard language regarding the irrevocable annexation petitions. I think that's customary in the city's agreements. In the event the property becomes contiguous to the city limits, and this one does that as well. I know there was some conversation at the last meeting in terms of annexation. I just wanted to point out that this agreement does make it very clear that any annexation is a separate decision that's entirely up to the city to make. I think the agreement says that it's in the city's sole discretion. So that's not a decision that needs to be made now. It's up to you all to make that decision at a future point in time. As staff noted, this phase of the project is not age restricted. It's open to all ages of home buyers. I know that was a question that came up last time. A couple other notes. We'll be paying the reservation fees up front for, I believe, 138 of these units, which is about $345,000, and we're planning to do that in very short order here. I mentioned that we've been working with the city on utilities for some years now for the project, and that includes the city's approval of a master utility plan that showed the utility line sizing, routing, and our prior agreements as well as this agreement are all consistent with that plan. I believe our engineering firm Dewberry and our project team have been working closely with Corey Clue and others at the city on that. This agreement also provides for a list of required development standards, all of which we're happy to comply with. And as you saw in the PowerPoint, this phase includes a very nice amenity center featuring a large pool for folks living in the community. So as staff pointed out, the property is in the city service area. There is capacity, and we would request respectfully and very much appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or a motion by council.
Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mayor.
Second from Councilmember Trace. Mr. Cooper, would you like to speak?
Yes, sir. I had a question. Mr. Sturgeon, you and I talked about this unincorporated water and stuff like that, so we could update it and keep a record so we would know against the water that we have left for in the city for new homes. And you and I had talked about that. We can keep up running tabulation, unincorporated water, so we can.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Councilman Cooper, and as we discussed, I would come to you with some sort of big round back of the envelope crayon information just so that to ease your mind on the water capacity.
I feel better.
Currently, our average daily water use is about 7 million gallons per day. And I'm going to use rounded numbers because it's very dangerous to take everything out of context because it's kind of a fluid environment, and maybe pun intended, because you've got a lot of factors that can change that will give you more or less water availability. So our permitted capacity for water is 9.7 million gallons per day. That's currently. So we're out using about 7. We've got about 9.7 that is permitted capacity. Aggie math, 2.7 million gallons per day difference. That doesn't count the peak demands, which we also have to consider, which is about 8.2 million gallons per day. So just in kind of, and I got a lot of, you don't want to be bored with all these calculations, but before we really, we can currently accommodate at least 9,000 units. If you consider we serve about 70,000 people. We've got about 27,000 water meters. So that's, right around 2.5 people per account. And you divide that up, that's just big round numbers. About a little over 80% of our customers are residential. A little under 20% are commercial. And so the factors that can change are zoning, demographics. Builders target townhouses in some areas. They may change depending on what's selling. The water use, irrigation augmentation, and we will be implementing a much more strong water conservation program so that we can extend our water resources. Also have been in talks with Toho and some of our neighbor sister cities. The more that we can connect and optimize our water resources across utilities, the better. I always like to do that no matter where I am. And we've been working with the University of Florida on a soil amendment that if it's put in when the subdivision is being developed, can use up to 40 to 50% less water to irrigate your land, or irrigate your house area. So we're working on a lot of things to stretch that water. So I'm just telling you that there are a lot of factors. So when I say, yeah, we can, another 9,000 units, it could be 15,000 units, it could be 20, it could be more. It could be as we optimize our water resources, but we're also looking at potential allocation reductions. So we're still good.
Okay, that was a question. Well, all I want to do is just make sure that every time that we get big subdivisions or any size of subdivision, it's going to be in the unincorporated, that you'll tabulate and keep up with it every time and let us know, because it's going to keep taking money or water down the road, away from the citizens in living in town.
I'm sorry?
It's going to take our water away from the citizens, you know, that are living in the city than unincorporated. So I just want to keep this separate, just 2 tabs and let us know what the ending balance is at.
And we actually do have a very complex, and I mean, it's pretty exact, but it should only be used for planning purposes. You know, there are planning numbers, and you want to have some, you know, little extra. Make sure that you have enough. So we've got some pretty complex capacity allocation spreadsheets.
Right, and as long as this is in our service areas, we have to give them water and sewer. So I understand.
And we've got
Okay.
we've got it to provide.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cooper. We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny and a second from Councilmember Trace for the approval of item 2020-254R. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to item number 2 under council action. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-281R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving a water and wastewater service agreement for Century Homes Florida LLC for a residential development named as Wiregrass Phase 3 and 4, located in the unincorporated areas of Osceola County on the south side of Jack Brack Road, north side of Jones Road, east of Narcoossee Road, and west of McMichael Road, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement and providing an effective date.
Marjorie Craig, Environmental Utilities Director again. As she mentioned the location of this particular subdivision. This subdivision will provide 309 single-family residences. Again, it's in the unincorporated part of Osceola County, but still within our utility service area. There's another photo of the location. And we have found that there are water and wastewater capacity available at the location, and we recommend approval of this water and wastewater agreement.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak to this item? I believe we have a well-known individual coming. How you doing, Sean?
Good evening. Sean Hindle, Hanson Walter Associates, 8 Broadway, Kissimmee, Florida, representing the applicant and available to answer any questions that you may have. This is the phase 3 and 4 of the first portion was phase 1 and 2 was brought to you as one phase. This is the next 2 phases that were purchased after we'd already had approval on phase 1 and 2. So this is just an expansion of that same subdivision.
Thank you. Do we have discussion and a motion by council? Discussion or motion by council?
Motion to approve resolution 2020-281R.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Trace.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thanks, John. Madam Clerk, you read item number 3.
Resolution number 2020-283R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving a water and wastewater service agreement for Avex Homes LLC for residential development named Simmons Trace, located in the unincorporated areas of Osceola County on the west side of Simmons Road, north of US Highway 192, south of Horton Road, east of the Florida's Turnpike, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement and providing an effective date.
Marjorie Craig, Environmental Utilities Director. This is Avex Homes, as she mentioned. This consists of 51 single-family residential units and 57 attached townhomes. As I mentioned earlier, there is plenty of water capacity available for this. It is located in the unincorporated Osceola County, but within the utility service area. Here's another location map. Staff recommends approval of this water and wastewater agreement. And here are some site plan of the development and some elevations. This is Simmons Trace. Staff recommends approval.
Is the applicant here would like to speak to this item? Thank you.
Mayor, and I apologize for doing that, but since he addressed the council, he needs to come up and get
Yes,
on the
sir.
record.
You need to come forward, give us your name, please.
Yeah, please don't yell out from the
For the
audience
record.
like that.
Hi, good evening. Eric Wills with Avex Homes, 28 East Washington Street, Orlando, Florida, 32801. I apologize for that. Here to ask for your approval, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else in the audience like to speak to this item? We'll have discussion and/or motion by council.
Motion to approve Resolution 2022-83R.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace. Do I have a second? I'll make a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4.
Resolution number 2020-267R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida for the Second Amendment fiscal year 2023 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2019 annual action plan and the citizens participation plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program, providing for conflict and providing an effective date.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. This is the second amendment to the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Program for the city's 2019-2023 consolidated plan. It's being done through Resolution 2020-267R. Back in March, the federal government adopted the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, known as CARES Act, and allocated a certain amount of funding in round 1 and round 2. And this funding allocation of $320,884 is part of round 3 funding to the city of St. Cloud. As I said before, this is part of our 5-year consolidated plan on our 2019 annual action plan. And the funding that's received from this program is for low to moderate income households, which basically means 80% of the area median income. And it's for individuals, households, and neighborhoods. Some of the eligible uses include public improvements and facilities, residential rehab, public services, and economic development. This is a breakdown of the first round CARES Act funding, which was $198,898, and the $319,076, which is our standard allocation for 2019. Added to that, the third round funding of $320,884 for a total of $838,858 that the city is eligible for and will receive once this has been adopted. This is a breakdown of the different funding amounts that are allocated for the different programs that we have identified. And the items 7, 8, 9, and 10 are in green, are the items that this funding for $320,898 is broken down to accommodate. Because of the CARES Act, there's some extenuating circumstances where funds are, they have suspended the 50% cap and have also extended deadline for plan submission, and also only requires a 5-day public comment period. And also they have suspended any in-person public hearings. Of course, we're holding an in-person public hearing now, so that's really a moot point. The next steps in the process was the public comment period, which was from October 12th through November 12th, being tonight will be the public hearing. And we will be submitting to HUD as soon as the City Council adopts this item. And then the program start would be as soon as HUD approves it, which will probably take anywhere from 1 to 2 months. We discovered that the agency, the office that approves the agreement, recently relocated from one location to another location in Texas, And so they are having some challenges getting set back up in order to process our application as well as hundreds of, I'm sure, across this region. So it is consistent with our economic development and growth management goal, and staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-267R and asks that the City Council also approve Resolution 2020-267R. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council.
Got a question.
Councilmember Askew.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe we can allocate some of that money when it finally does come in for safety on our roads, pedestrians crossing. We had an accident with one of our crossing guards in Lakeshore. A guy got hit in a bicycle. So just something we can, just little baby steps, especially where places where people are getting hit.
So what you have identified is a eligible use. It's beyond the public services, so we can do that. And you may not recall, or you may recall, we recently approved the 220 amendment for program year 220, and we revised the categories to make them broader. This way, we would not have the challenge of having to bring it each time to you to add a program. So we made the category, the goal, the national goals much broader to allow for projects that might come up that fits in one of those categories.
Yeah, thank you very much. And whoever did that, it was fantastic. Who wrote that? Well, fantastic.
Do we have any other further discussion, questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Askew.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Cooper for the adoption of 267R. Madam Clerk.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to item number 5, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Resolution number 2020-284R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, for the third substantial amendment to fiscal year 2019-2023 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2019 annual action plan by the Citizens Participation Plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program, providing for conflict and providing an effective date.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. So you just approved Second Amendment, and now I'm asking you to approve a Third Amendment. This amendment will allow for us to reallocate funds from a couple of different programs to allow for rental assistance. By way of background, what happened was when the city was not an entitlement city, the Osceola County was the agency that would receive applications on behalf of the city to provide rental assistance for residents within the city of St. Cloud. Since that time, the county is no longer obligated or required to provide assistance to city residents for rental assistance, and as such, we need to provide that service ourselves. So we are amending our plan to allow for that provision for the 2019 budget year of the program, because we did not include it. And at that time, we were very specific in what programs we would fund in the 2019 year. So so what we're proposing, I'm switching slides here because this was also another last minute change, is that what you see on the screen are our 2019 allocation of $319,076, and we are proposing not $40,000 but $100,000 for rental assistance. And the reason we're able to do that is we are using $60,000 from the CARES Act CV1 funding allocation, in addition to the $40,000 that we have reallocated from our youth scholarships program on the public community development and the closing cost assistance funding for 2019. So our total towards rental assistance will now be $100,000 plus our $319,076, which is our regular funding. So our total funding for 2019 is $379,076. Again, the same allocation provisions extends the deadline, allows for us to suspend 50% cap, 5-day public comment period is also the minimum, and again, suspends in-person public hearings. Next steps, we did hold a public comment period from October 29th through November 15th. That was 15 days. We, pardon me, we are holding a public hearing tonight on this item, and we will be submitting it to HUD as soon as we can after approval, and we'll start as soon as HUD approves this amendment. It's consistent with our economic development and growth management strategic goals, and staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-284R with the amendment to add $60,000 from the CARES Act CV1 funding.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or motion by council.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Councilmember Askew. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk?
Can I just clarify that it also includes the 60,000?
Sure.
Thank you.
Motion to approve includes the 60,000.
As amended. Madam Clerk?
Mayor.
Mayor, I can wait till after
Yes.
the vote. If I could be recognized after the vote.
Yes. After we vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Sturgeon?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I want to publicly recognize and thank Mr. Anderson for taking on this CDBG project. He came to me several years ago with the intent to us become an entitlement city. And if you've ever dealt with the federal government and all the paperwork and all the headaches, and he's personally made this his mission, and I just want to thank him for his leadership on this, and it's really good for the city. So thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. I can't begin to imagine how much paperwork and headache went into all the work that you've done. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 6?
Request City Council approval for Tohoku Phases 4 and 5 preliminary subdivision plan amendment.
Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. This is an amendment to the Tohoku Phases 4 and 5 preliminary subdivision plan, or PSP amendment. There is no change to the configuration or layout of the project or anything that you already previously approved. It is merely an adjustment of the numbering system. They are processing the plat, and the plat does not match the PSP, and by law they're supposed to match. And so we're going back after the fact to make sure that the numbering matches what's on the plat. That is the purpose of this amendment. And it's consistent with our growth management goal, and we recommend approval of the preliminary subdivision plan amendment for Tohoku Phases 4 and 5.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Please state your name, address.
Good evening. My name is Chris Wren. I'm with Pulte Home Company, LLC. Address is 4901 Vineland Road, Suite 460, Orlando, Florida 32811. I have no comments specifically other than thank you to council for your time and consideration, and the staff as well, and the public. But I am here to answer any questions if you have them for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item in the audience? If not, we'll have discussion under motion by council. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that this doesn't eliminate the previous condition on the previous approval about the right-of-way dedication along Neptune Road. There's no changes or slippery language got slid in or anything like that. Like, they're still dedicating the right-of-way on Neptune.
Nope. I don't see anything here. Nope, I don't see anything.
You don't see it that they have to do it, or you don't see?
No,
that
no,
they-
no. The previous approval doesn't change. All that this amendment does is change the numbering of the lots.
Okay, I just want to make sure like something didn't get slid in there that Dan, I'm sure, would have caught.
Thank you.
See if he was listening. Okay.
Do we have any other questions from council? Could I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Askew, second from Councilmember Matheny for the approval. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper.
No.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Brings us to item number 7.
Discussion and possible action regarding letter of engagement for Gray Robinson.
That's going to be me, Mayor. Could I have the next slide, please?
Please state your name for the record.
Bill Sturgeon, City Manager. See if we can get- Go over there.
It's a little difficult to hear on this side, so that's why I think he's going over there.
Here we go. Good evening, council. This is a request from Gray Robinson, who is our lobbying firm. I've had the pleasure of working with them over the last 3 years. They are the people that get us into the doors to the different legislative officials in Tallahassee. We've had very successful lobbying efforts with Gray Robertson. Last year, we were funded for over $1.5 million in allocations. Unfortunately, the governor did veto 2 of those, but we did receive an allocation for the Chisholm Park dredging project in the amount of $300,000. Based on that success and their ability to get the doors open in Tallahassee for us to see the right people, they're asking for an increase of $12,000 per year. Their current contract is $48,000, and that would take the total to $60,000 a day for Gray Robinson. And like I said, I consider Gray Robinson the A-team, so my recommendation is to give him that increase.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this item? Please state your name and address for the record.
Teresa Melhock, 2924 Colbury Circle, St. Cloud. I think this is the wrong time to ask for a raise. Everybody's hurting, and I don't think the state's going to have a lot of money coming up next year either, so there'll probably be a lot of vetoes because so much money is going out because of COVID-19. So I just, in my personal opinion, it's the wrong time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or motion by council.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cooper.
Mr. Sturgeon, you and I had talked about that, and I said something about, it seems like $12,000 to me is a lot of money for increase from last year to this year. You know, I could see $3,000 to $5,000 increase, you know, but I just can't. It's kind of $12,000 seems like a lot of money. I understand they get one project through, but like Ms. Melhott just said, it's kind of tough for everybody for money right now, and that kind of money is that's a lot of increase from 1 year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Rescue? I can't say how well Gray Robertson does when you go up to Tallahassee. I mean, every door seems to open, and if it wasn't for the COVID, I would assume we would got more projects in. But it's not just about Tallahassee. It's picking up the phone and calling them and trying to get some advice. So, you know, where could I go for this funding? And a lot of times it's not even to Tallahassee. So I could support this. I think Gray Robertson is a huge help to the city. And I appreciate all that they do for us. And I think their door's always open for all of us if you ever tried calling them. So,
thank you. Councilmember Trace.
Along the same lines of this, are we going to have a sit down here soon and talk about what legislative priorities we have coming up for January, you know, for session coming up?
Mayor, be recognized?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Trace, it's my intention to do that. Remember, the session starts a little later this year, so we got a little bit of time. I've been speaking to the lobbyist, and based on the COVID-19, we think we're going to have to look at policy issues this year instead of allocations. So we'll need to sit there and devise what that looks like. I'm working with him to devise that list right now of what policy initiatives, most of the time probably stuff we're going to have to stop or go against. But because I just feel like the legislature this year, they're not going to be given a lot of money because we're all going to be hurting because of the COVID-19.
And then along the same path of the federal side, last year we allocated, and this year we're allocating funds towards the federal lobbying side, and I just want to make sure we have effort going towards that as well.
Correct, and the federal side of Ray Robinson owes me a report here soon, and as we talked about when we initiated that engagement with them, this is a multi-year process because the federal government operates a little bit differently, and then we fell right in an election right now. So they do owe me a report, and I'll get that to you guys in the next couple months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I think Gray Robinson does a fantastic job too for us. I mean, the level of professionalism is off the charts with that firm. I also see the other side of, we got a tough year ahead of us, and kind of, we got to be cognizant of our money. I don't know. It's a little bit of a tough one for me. I mean, I think there's also, like the point several people have made, I think there's also going to be limited funds available this year, and it's going to be a tough competition for that. I don't know. I'm torn. I mean, I think maybe I would feel more comfortable with like a $6,000
I do too.
increase and not a $12,000. But I mean, they do a wonderful job for us, and I hope they continue with us for many, many years. I just think, we're going to have to be really, really, really judicious with our funds.
Is that a motion?
Are you going to make that a motion then?
Sure. I'd approve it at $6,000.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny and a second from Councilmember Cooper that the increase be limited to $6,000. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Madam Clerk, please read item number 8.
Discussion and possible action regarding the selection of a deputy mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any nominations for deputy mayor? Councilmember Matheny?
I'll nominate Councilmember Dave Askew to be deputy mayor.
Dave Askew. Do we have any other nominations? Well, we have two people who requested to speak. Teresa Melhott.
Teresa Melhott, 2924 Coolbree Circle, St. Cloud. First, I'd like to congratulate Councilwoman Matheny, the mayor, and Councilman Cooper on your re-election. I am here to ask the council to consider Chuck Cooper for the position of deputy mayor. I looked at the history of our deputy mayor, and for 2 years prior to your re-election campaign, Mr. Askew, you had it for 2 years, and then 2 years Lynette Matheny had it. And I think that was a way to keep you all front and center for your all's re-election campaigns. But Chuck's never had the position at all. And I feel he should have the opportunity because 13,256 voters consider him the people's councilman. I know from watching the meetings in the past, there has been plainly obvious that certain members of the council dislike him, and these members tried everything to get rid of him, even by choosing, backing, and supporting his opponent. My guess is that, well, I had thought maybe they might make Mr. Trace the deputy mayor, because for 2 years he would be up before your re-election campaign in 2022. But Chuck certainly could have it for 1 year, and then we could see how it goes. At times, The council has acted exasperated with you, Mr. Cooper. You can be very blunt, straightforward talking, a little bit brash. But the people feel like you're the one that listens to us, the existing citizens. At least 13,256 of us. We don't have thousands of dollars to donate to your all's campaign for re-election or election. We don't have deep pockets like developers or other companies, but we have the vote. And I, for one, would like to see Chuck treated fairly and have him at least to serve 1 year as deputy mayor. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Mr. Lowell, please step up.
Good evening, council. Again, my name is Thomas Lord. I live at 3255 Olivera Way. I don't think I could say it any better than Teresa did. But the only thing that I have to add is maybe you could make this something you could rotate amongst the council members annually so that every council member gets an equal shot at being deputy mayor. But I do recognize that Chuck has been on the council for 4 years and he has never been deputy mayor. Mr. Trace, for 2 years, he's never been deputy mayor. So I just ask that, you consider Chuck for deputy mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Mr. Trace.
So we had nominated did you say Mr. Trace?
Yeah.
So we have a second nomination from Councilmember Trace. Any other nominations? I guess we're going to vote between these two gentlemen then, right?
Well, technically, Mr. Mayor, when you have competing nominations, it'd be best to have a second to either of the nominations.
Okay.
If Mr. Trace is willing to be the deputy mayor, I'll withdraw my nomination of Mr. Askew.
Is that okay with you?
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Then we only have
Second.
one nomination then. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Mr. Manzares.
I would like thank you, Mr. Mayor, but we would like to have another Stevens Plantation DSD meeting, and I was hoping to do it at before your December 10th council meeting. And I apologize for the late notice to everybody, but late this afternoon, we received 2 offers with regard to tracks 6 and 8A at the corporate campus, and we'd like to sort of strike while the iron is hot. So we'd ask that we be able to have a DSD meeting on December 10th at 6 o'clock.
Are there any objections
Oh,
to
I'm sorry, what date?
December the 10th? That would be
December
prior
10th.
to our city council meeting?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Or are we fine making it on the 3rd? We have a CRA meeting that night too, unless that's going to get canceled or if it's really
Yes.
time is of the essence. I don't.
I'd rather stick with the 10th and just
Okay.
because we know the council meeting's going to have.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank
That's fine with me.
Is that fine? Okay, you have a consensus on that then.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Manzares?
No, sir, thank you.
Mrs. Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, the last council meeting, council directed me to speak with Osceola County regarding Canoe Creek Road and what we can do to move that project along. I'm proud to tell you we had a great meeting with them. They were willing to work with us to develop the scope of work for the PD&E, and I will be coming forward as soon as we get that done with an interlocal agreement to transfer some of those mobility fees to them to start that project. So I'm very happy, great idea, great meeting. In terms of other projects that I want to talk about tonight that are coming down that they're going to be able to help us with also. So it's a great, productive meeting. One of the best I've ever had. I mean, it just came out of there feeling really good.
Excellent. Well, we need to send you to go talk to them more often then.
The second thing is the CARES Act funding. Osceola County is going to receive CARES Act funding to reimburse them for their public safety expenses. And they've made the decision they're going to take that money and reallocate it into 4 different areas. 1, distance learning, rental assistance, housing, and assistance for small businesses. And all of the citizens and businesses in St. Cloud will be eligible for that. But that's how they decided to reallocate that money. Again, I've been working with Mr. Fisher and Mr. Steigerwald to make this happen, and I'm just proud to tell you that that's another win for the city tonight. On a personal note, as you know, my wife is struggling with an illness right now. She has to have some serious surgery beginning of next month, so I probably will be on family medical leave next month. I do have some significant council business, but I'll be present for the meeting, but, be in touch with you guys. But I just want to let you know, please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll be praying for your wife. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sturgeon, can you tell me about the lakefront you and I talked about, close to the water where the site, where the walk path is there? The higher weeds are actually branches, trees that are growing there. And you said something about we were going to take care of them and get them out, or we get a permit for that, or in the process, or what?
I asked Stephanie to give me and she didn't get to me yet, but I need to get to show you what we're going to do. And like I said, we're permitted to take out certain invasive species.
Much
plants.
like we did at Steve, out there at Chisholm Park.
Correct. And it's actually limited. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I know they're out there working and they're identifying what those areas are. And I don't want to tell you wrong, so I'd like to show you once I get that map, just to be able to show you that.
But the city did they took the trees out there at Chisholm Park?
Right. Remember, we had to get the special permit from the Freshwater Fish Commission.
Okay.
Game and Freshwater. We had to get a permit to get those trees. You and I went out there and
Yes, we did. Can we go back and get a permit for that and get this taken care of as soon as possible?
We can check with them. Again, it's up to them.
I mean, you got these, where these trees are at, and people are walking right there along the sidewalk there, that roadway. You got all kinds of varmints that can get in there. It's a lot easier if it's cleaner, where you can see, and instead of walking there at evening or dark when there could be a snake coming across there.
Are you talking about the grass pathways on the
Yes, the grass
on
pathway.
the north side of the
Yes.
Okay.
Right to the lake.
We'll take a look at that. Like I said, I know that they're
It's overgrown.
cleaning that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. They're cleaning
all
that right now.
Yes, sir.
And I'll get with her and get a specific area.
Yeah, if you could just see if you could get a permit for that and get that cleaned up like you did at Chisholm Park, that was excellent.
Is that okay, council? Move forward with that? If we can get that cleaned up?
Council, go ahead.
All right, thank
It's
you.
just
Did I get
invasive
that?
species, right?
Let's get a permit for that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. You have
Got one or two more things here. Could you tell me about the in the grid, as far as I talked about it this evening, about trying to get, we've got almost $10 million you said we could spend, but
Well,
you need to speak into the mic, Mr. Cooper.
You got about-
What I was referring to, the question you asked me is how much money we had to spend, and I said, well, that's the reserve fund, is $10 million.
I understand.
So what we did is, I believe it was several meetings ago, Deputy Mayor, Councilmember Matheny brought up, Deputy Mayor then, about what we needed to do to do a revitalization of the historic grid. So my team has went ahead and looked into master planning that, and we're trying to put an allocation together for that to bring back to council to do that master plan. We've done our pavement indexing study, so we have a paving plan in place, but we didn't want to start paving any areas until we have that master plan done. We don't want to put down the road, pave it, and then tear it up and put stormwater pipes in. So we need to go ahead and master plan that before we do anything, and that, like I said, they're working on that plan right now and to come back and request an allocation for that. And again, that could be part of our strategic planning discussion, and I'm going to move that back to probably the first of the year, first of the calendar year.
Okay, my only problem was that I had talked to you about, the longer you longer you wait down the road to get this done, you know, from the master in the grid, as far as this master plan you're talking about, it's going to be, you know, in 6 months or 8 months from now, it's going to be 8 to 10% anyway increase of cost than what it is now. If you get started, if we could fast track this a little quicker, get it moving. Let's save some more money instead of waiting 6 to 8 months to a year before you're going to do anything. And we got the money sitting there. Let's save a little bit of money. That's where I'm coming from. So if the other council members could think we could maybe fast track this a little quicker than what we're doing in the grid.
I'm a little confused of what we're asking for.
Well, everything that we're going to need as far as the drain, all the sewer lines, you know, everything that in the grid that's 40, 50 years old is broken or bad pipes that needs to be put all the liners and stuff like that in there. Let's see if we can go ahead and fast track it a little bit and get it finished.
As Ms. Craig, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Councilmember Atheny.
Thank you. So this is what I brought up at the last council meeting where I said, you know, why don't we try to look at the grid and do a holistic plan? It's like what Councilmember Cooper's talking about. Is like, let's look at the asphalt. Let's look at the, you know, as you go down each road, this one has, you know, parallel parking. That one doesn't have parallel parking. This one has enclosed drainage. That one doesn't have, you know. I was like, why don't we create a section that we want for the roadway, and then let's systematically go through and like do it in a way that makes sense. Like let's repair the water and sewer. Let's put the drainage in. Let's get a sidewalk. Let's do everything. So that's what Mr. Sturgeon is actually saying. So we can't really jump ahead and do it and hurry up because we need to like figure out what the ultimate plan is. So we don't want to go mill and resurface the road and then we're like, oh shoot, like the storm system is failing or whatever, and then you tear up this road that you just milled and resurfaced. So I think what we're doing is what you're wanting, but I mean, in my opinion, I wouldn't jump forward and try to do stuff because then you're just potentially going to be ripping it up.
Well, I'm not saying jump ahead. I'm just saying let's fast track it as fast as you can, and let's move forward and keep doing something in the grid to get it finished and get it repaired.
In regards to wastewater, that's why we brought in USSI. That's exactly what we're doing an analysis of the wastewater system. We're lining pipes, we're repairing manholes. So we are doing that, so we are moving on that, and we need to have an analysis of what that repair is going to look like, and that's why they're doing the TV. Again, as far as the Envision St. Cloud plan, you know, we want it to be all-encompassing, and like Deputy Mayor said, you know, we want to make sure we look at the sidewalks and the roads and the stormwater improvements and all the grading, and we want to make sure we do it right. So if we're going to invest money, which we should, we want to do it right. And you know, we're limited to the engineering studies and all that stuff that, you know, we need to bring forward to do that.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, can I add something to
Go ahead.
Mr. Cooper? So when they're doing it, are they also going to look at possibly speed control on those state streets? Because people are, you know, drive.
I drive out here.
pedal to the metal.
I get
so I don't
it.
know if we put stop signs at 5th to just slow people down, you know, or I don't know if when we improve the road section, maybe we could make it a little meandering or doing something that makes people slow down, or, you know, like you're in Orlando and they have these certain sections that you're driving in the old grid, and then all of a sudden the road gets really tight, like, so you have to slow down because you don't want to hit the curbs. And then, I mean, just like meander the traffic to do something it makes drivers uncomfortable and slows them down. Right now, they just like pedal to the metal and they just go down Lakeshore and they go from 192 to Lakefront.
Mayor?
Please, Mr.
Thank you. I think this fits in exactly what Mr. Trace referred to last meeting about a strategic plan, pick out 4 or 5 big things to do each year and get those done. And I think that's what Mr. Cooper's telling me too.
that's where I'm trying to get, yes.
We've got a significant amount of accomplishments over the last year, but it has been all over the place because we've had some emergencies along there too. COVID-19, a couple hurricanes, but we've done really well. But I think time to take a more focused approach and how we allocate those funds to move this thing down the road.
especially in the grid. We, you know, haven't.
Absolutely.
They haven't touched anything in the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and Mr. Sturgeon, last question I ask you every month, where's our sound system?
After I get done laughing, can I answer? So, I know. It's a joke. So, as you remember, gosh, back in September, we got our vendors in line. We just now got them all certified, and they're in their question period for the bid right now. That before the bid's awarded, they're doing their question and answer period. So I'm hoping to have a bid here in the next couple of weeks that we can move this thing forward. Again, some of them weren't. It took us like a month to get a response out of them. So we'll get that moving as soon as we get this bid awarded.
I heard that last month and the month
Well,
before
again,
that and the month before that.
But
I'm
remember,
sorry.
I don't control the vendors, and neither does
I know, I'm
staff,
not-
but yeah, so we're like trying to needle them, like, we need you to do this. At first, we couldn't find vendors, then we got plenty of vendors, and then they needed to be certified, and then now we've got the bid process going, trying to get those answers to their questions for them.
So you think in the next 2 weeks you'd have something?
I don't want to hang my neck out there. Yes, we should have a bid awarded in the next several weeks.
Okay. I'd feel a whole lot better. And I'll be on your...
I know. I got it.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. A couple, I don't know, month or two ago, I asked about the lights on New York Avenue because a lot of them are burnt out. I'd say about 50% of the bulbs are burnt out. And then I know Ms. Holtkamp said that they were on it and they were working on it, but can we just check in on that and see if there was any way we could, I mean, it's getting to be Christmas and it's like the lights are half burnt out, so that would be great.
Yep.
And then congrats on the meeting with the county. I think when we go and we are partnering, when we come with like a partnering idea, I always think that that's more successful than just saying, what are you going to do for us? Why haven't you done anything for us? You know, so I think us coming and saying we want to partner, we want to move it up, I think that's always successful. So I had a conversation with the Transportation and Transit Director, Ms. Tanya Lori. She mentioned to me that it is a common practice that smaller communities like St. Cloud, in other communities, I think it was DeBary and Volusia County, like DeBary doesn't have their own transportation and transit department, and so they enter into an interlocal agreement with Volusia County, and Volusia County basically acts as the extension of city staff, and they help with the big picture planning type things. Like, you know, we have this money in our mobility fee, like what are we doing with it? What's our plan? Like what's our program? So she basically told me that the county, Osceola County, would be willing to do a similar kind of program with the city. And she said that the city would have ultimate decision and control. You know, they would just be an extension of staff. And you know, at the city, we don't have any transportation folks. I know we're getting ready to have one, but again, that's like one person. So I kind of thought it was an interesting idea, and I thought it was very generous, you know, of them to offer that. And, you know, they've got a pretty amazing program going on at the county right now, and successful with MetroPlan and acquiring funding and, you know, getting all that. They know how to do all of these processes, and they're offering to enter into an agreement with the city. And then, of course, the city would have to pay for their staff time. It's not for free, but they were willing to help us create a program and get it, you know, as much or as little assistance as the city would like to have, that they were willing to do. I thought it was an interesting offer. I mentioned it to the city manager and deputy city manager, and they seemed interested by the idea. So I just kind of was wanting to see if council was interested in, you know, investigating that idea and kind of figuring out the details of it and seeing if it's something that we would be interested in.
Well, I would certainly be supportive of bringing back recommendations of how you think that would work, because I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and that's the path I was hoping we were going down with the meeting that the county and the city had, of just planning those out together and asking for the funds from the state and everyone at the same time, have us as part of the same ranked list. So I think it's good.
Yeah, didn't, that's okay, Mark.
Go ahead.
Didn't I think the county came to the city council 6 years ago, 7 years ago, regarding mobility fees and said that, we'll accept your mobility fees, but the council almost unanimously knocked it down. I'm not sure why. I wasn't on council at the time, so.
Well, as I recall, the council didn't unanimously reject it. The council had a discussion with the county manager at the time about the county taking over the Nolte Road bonds in exchange for essentially dealing with the mobility fees. And that was part of the discussions that were put in place at the time. It was never completed, and we never were able to get that far. Because remember, that's the big issue that you have with your transportation and mobility fees, is that those fees are used as repayment sources for the Nolte Road bonds.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well, I just thought it was an interesting idea, and I would like us to investigate it and, see what terms and conditions
Yeah,
and,
I'm good. Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
good with that.
is there two other peeps?
Yeah,
All right.
got that.
Do you have direction?
Yes, thank you. And like I said, I'm just excited about the meeting we had. I just see good things moving forward, so.
Thank you.
That's it.
You done? Councilmember Askew.
Just wanted, hopefully we're still going to have a historical workshop. There's some issues out there. Not ready to share pictures, but would like to fix that stuff. And this is really to the water department. The Duvals came to my shop and they were complaining about some stuff, and it was flushing the toilet when rain was coming. And I told them, I go, if there's anything wrong with your pipes and stuff, I don't know if you heard it from me or wherever, but I'm like, you should call the city. So they ended up calling the city, and within an hour, they had a crew out there and fixed their problem, replaced some pipes and things like that. And he came in ecstatic. You're talking about a person that probably didn't like the city so much in some cases, and he just like, this is amazing. So kudos to the water department. I guess we don't hear enough of that, but.
Again, Mr. Askew, and again, I have to just, I'm so blessed to have Marjorie Craig as our utilities director. She has the expertise, and she is so customer service oriented. She lives in the city. She takes it seriously. She calls people back, and for a director to spend time with people, really finding out what their issue is, that's what I'm all about. I've preached that since I became manager, is customer service. That's what we differentiate ourselves from other cities.
Yeah, he peeled some time out of his day just to come to say thank you, and I'm like, I'm going to let council know that, so kudos to those guys. That's it for me. Thank you.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. I hope everyone has a safe holiday and Thanksgiving, and if you're going to spend money locally.
All right. Shop local.
Eat a lot of turkey.
Mayor, can I have a go back?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Well, I should have done this, and I didn't think of it till Councilmember Askew said that, but I want to give a shout out to Nasim, because I've had so many complaints on drainage. He could stay back there. Hi, Nasim. And he's really jumped on it and gone and met with the people and resolved their issues. And it's the same thing as the water and sewer. And I've done that same thing with Marjorie. Is I will be looking on Facebook and I see someone complaining about whatever. I just screenshot it and email it, and they find the person and go deal with them and convert them off of their issues that they're complaining on Facebook. And so they're doing a fantastic job. And I know Nasim has been solving drainage problems left and right in town and making a lot of people happy.
I've seen him literally in the ditch, walking around trying to figure out where pipes are clogged. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some incredible staff, and I want to send out a kudos to Nasim and Marjorie also. You guys are amazingly responsive, and thank you so much. I also want to send a thank you, or share a thank you from Transition House. I went to a graduation experience that they had where they had several people that were graduating from their program there. What was really neat were these were people who had major issues before they came into the Transition House, and they've gone through a training program, they've got new skills, they're leaving the program with a job, and we have made an investment, and they were especially grateful for the money that the council approved to help fund what they're doing, and they're just doing a great job. It's really neat seeing people's lives literally change through that work. And big kudos out to Ms. Matheny, who went to bat for the amount that we ended up approving for the transition house. And they were grateful, and just want to pass that on to you. With that, we come to our information section and report section. Thursday and Friday, November 26 and 27, 2020, city offices will be closed in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. Friday, December the 4th, there will be a tree lighting celebration virtually. That'll be interesting. Saturday, December the 5th, will be the Christmas parade at 10 a.m. in downtown St. Cloud. That same day, the 5th, will be the St. Cloud Holiday Festival in downtown St. Cloud. Also that same day will be the Winter Extravaganza at 6 p.m. that evening across the way at the Civic Center. Thursday, December the 10th, there will be a city council meeting at 6:30 p.m. preceded by a DSD meeting, thanks to our wonderful city attorney. With that, it brings us to our reports. Warrant list number 1. Suzanne Davidson, Parks and Recreation, was presented the Employee of the Month Award for the month of October 2020. Kudos and hurrahs out to Suzanne. Recreation Advisory Committee meeting minutes are available for August. They have been approved. The Recreation Advisory Committee special meeting minutes for October the 1st have also been approved and are available for your review. With that, I thank everyone for their patience and your input and your participation tonight. Congratulations again to our new Deputy Director, Trace. With that, we're adjourned.
Yeah, it's a little warm in here.
I texted you.
What's the theme of the Christmas parade?